And there were people, oh my God, they were doing like 6 and 8 cruises a year, and then even 20 and 30, like, but a lot of them said, really savvy, so like, seaboard. So, well, tell Judy,
Okay, just a couple of quick housekeeping items, everybody. This is a camera and a microphone right there on that little thing, so everything you say will be picked up right there. And it is streamed YouTube live and recorded. So if you don't want to say anything, you know, or anything like that.
Just a warning.
You've been warned. So, okay, we're ready when you are.
All right, thank you, Alicia. Welcome, everyone. This is the Hideout Town Council regular meeting and public hearings of May 8th, 2025. And my name is Chris Byer. I'm the mayor pro tempore and also a council member. And I'm calling this meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call. Carol Hazelton, I am here. Bob Nadelberg,
I am here.
Jonathan Gunn,
Also here.
Ralph Severini,
And here as well.
and Chris Byer. I'm here. Okay, we have a full council tonight. That's wonderful. All right, our first order of business is approval of council minutes. So we have two sets of minutes in front of us. One is from the April 10th, 2025 town council meeting. Do any council members have any feedback on those minutes? Correction? Question? None. Okay. We also have a set of minutes from May 2nd, 2025. Town council closed session minutes. Does anyone have any questions, comments, corrections? All right, then I'll need a motion to approve the April 10th, 2025 town council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Okay, I recognize Carol, and then was it Bob who, well, I need a second. Bob, were you a second? Okay, Bob is a second. Thank you, Bob. All right, Jonathan,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Carol, yes. And Chris, yes. Okay, let's move on to the approval of the May 2nd, 2025 town council closed session minutes. I need a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
All right, Bob, motion.
Second.
Second is Ralph. Okay, Carol. Yes. Hold on one second. Where were we? Sorry. Can't support. Okay. All right, so Bob was the motion, Ralph was second. Carol, let's go through the approval again. This is the approval of the May 2nd closed meeting minutes. Yes. Bob,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
and Chris is a yes. Okay, now we're on agenda item 4, follow-up of items from approved minutes. So I guess I'll start with council member Ralph Severini. Ralph, do you have any follow-up items that you want to bring forward?
Yeah, there were a few, Chris, that I noticed, but I'm not yet. A number of them were in the committee areas, so I'm gonna at least put this off until the next time around, because some of these follow-ups may come through the committees, and I don't want to kind of extend the meeting here unnecessarily. So I'll put my follow-ups until next meeting if we need them.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. We will be having the committee updates at the end, if you think that's the right time to ask some questions.
Well, some of them you actually referenced, the post committee, the EDC. So, they're actually our follow-ups. So we'll probably get to those when we do the committees in the reference to this particular set of minutes. So that's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Ralph. All right, Jonathan, any follow-ups? Okay, while we wait for Jonathan, Bob, any follow-ups from
No.
any of the minutes? No? Hey, Carol, any follow-ups? No. All right, and I don't have any follow-ups.
And none from me. I'm sorry, I was on mute.
No worries, Jonathan, thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next item, and this is item 5, public input. The floor is now open for any attendee to speak on items not listed on the agenda. Now, I just want to add a clarification to that before we get started. We do have a public hearing item. We have 4 public hearing items on the agenda. There is one that was a continuation, and that's the Shoreline Phase 4 subdivision. However, if any of the public have public input on that specific subdivision, we'll be taking that at that time during this meeting. So not during this section of public input, but when we get to the public hearing portion. Okay, with that, Alicia, can you remind us how to get off mute or raise your hand?
Sure. So if you're on Zoom and you want to speak, please just use the raise hand function in Zoom. Or if you're on your telephone, then you can do *9 and it'll raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute when we call on you.
I'm looking for hands. Anybody in the room? Public input not related to Shoreline. Okay. Rachel has it. Okay, Rachel Cooper has her hand up. Hey, Rachel, could we unmute Rachel? All right, Rachel, looks like you're unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, Chris. This is actually Brian. I'm lurking on her machine
Hi,
rather than having 2 machines. Yeah, I just wanted to point out, we just took a hike up Shoreline Drive, the southern end around by the Gulch, and looking at what Rocky Mountain Power considers finished grade, I would not consider that at all. It's really rough. And I also, right behind the mailboxes going up to our Shoreline 1, where they cut into the hill there, they transected our trail. They removed a lot of brush, and they've left brush piles there. They have removed the gravel from the trail in several places. It's already causing erosion, and they haven't hydroseeded anything there. Where they have along the road, actually they hydroseeded the gravel trail along Shoreline, which they shouldn't have done. So I don't know who is interfacing with them, if that's Gordon or somebody else at the town, but we really ought to make them do a much better job finishing.
All right, thank you, Brian. Great feedback. We'll look into that.
Mayor, this is Thomas, and I'll let you know that we are coordinating with Rocky Mountain Power. I was in contact with them today, but I will let them know these issues.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. Thomas, do you need
Thanks, Brian.
anything that Brian might have taken?
Brian, if you have any photos that you can send.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I took some photos. I'll send them to you, Thomas.
Thanks, Brian.
Thomas, thank you. Fantastic. All right, in the room.
Glenn Stahansky, 11535 North Upside.
Glenn, is you want to step up to the podium? We're gonna have for me. Hold on, call me by your first name, and you call me by my first name. So our formality is only like that deep.
Oh, I'm important.
Preach, brother.
Okay, no, I did the cleanup this past weekend and, found out that the town fines the developers $500 if they're not cleaning up. And I'd like to complain about Homes in Lakewood. It's a mess. I picked up a huge piece of some kind of paper that had blown over in the wind, and then another piece of thin styrofoam. So maybe a warning would suffice.
Okay, thank you, Glynis. I think Daniel joined us. Daniel, are you on? And
Yeah.
able to? So did you hear Glynis's public input by any chance?
Yep.
Okay, do you have any comments or anything you'd like to say regarding? And you said it's Lakewood Estates that had, that you knew from the cleanup that had the trash situation. Just wanted to call to your attention, Daniel, because I know
I'm working with Homes. I work with them every day. It's an ongoing battle. We have the snow that covers it up, it comes away, and then we have trash, and I work with them. Right now, he's got a guy that comes in every day, I think, and then we're working on going through and giving him a grade on how well he's doing every week. And if he's not meeting the grade, he doesn't get a bonus. So hopefully things will start doing better, but we'll have to see how things go.
Are we writing citations?
We are working on the citation issues, so making sure that they were done correctly and that we can actually write the citations and get them to the correct people and get them cited and get money for them. I'm still working on a couple small things with Cameron. So yes, we are eventually.
Okay, thank you. We're always looking to make sure that we're at least maximizing our enforcement, opportunities that we have. Daniel, thank you. Really appreciate it. I know it's a never ending battle. And today, of course, the wind kicked up. So whatever we cleaned up last weekend, probably more stuff going around now. And people have had lunch and left things out. Yes, so it isn't, it's a, we'll only win the war, but we fight the little battles. Okay, any other public input or any hands up online? Anybody else in the room? All right, with that, I will close public input. Now we're moving on to the public hearing portion. We do have 4 public hearings. So this, we will be spending a little time in here, and for each of these agenda items, there'll be, we'll do a staff presentation and where applicable, and council will have a chance to have discussion, then we'll open it up to public input at that point on each item separately. Okay. All right, so the first public hearing is consideration and possible approval of an ordinance amending the engineering design standards manual. And there are 3 key proposed updates that would be included. Okay, so for this item, is Gordon Minor on?
Yes, I'm here.
No, hey, Gordon, do you have, let me click down to that portion of the agenda. So here's the ordinance adopting the changes. Is there, here we go. Would you like me to continue to share my screen for the presentation and you just talk through each of the items, or do you want to share your screen as you're talking?
I would really appreciate you just continuing like you're doing there.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, Gordon, will you take us through what these proposed updates would include?
Sure. So this first one, if you could scroll up to where you see the red.
Sorry, up means down. Sorry. Heading there.
Scroll down. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So all we're doing here, this is a common law idea. It's, under the common law, it would just be an issue of trespass. But we're putting it in the standards to make it abundantly clear that offsite water um, cannot come into the city's storm drain system unless, we've got a caveat there where the town engineer, with in concert with the administration, can make a decision from time to time. But the rule is somebody can't just come along and discharge private stormwater into the town's public storm drainage system. So we're just making it abundantly clear on that one. Are there any questions about that one?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Every year or two, we get a huge deluge and downpour. And as I drive through the town, it appears to me that most of the lots are graded in such that the house is high and the street is low. So if we get another deluging rain, like we get every year or two, the stormwater then runs downhill on the private lot and eventually ends up into the street where it goes into the storm sewer system. I don't understand how, if my if my theory is correct here, what are we doing here? How's a homeowner going to be able to stop that? And or what are they supposed to do with this storm water when the rain falls and it starts to run towards the street?
Well, in a case like that, that would be an approved kind of, incidental sheet flow from an adjacent property to the right of way is no big deal. This is to prevent channelized flow from being intentionally injected into the city's storm drain system.
So, so that it's clear, I'd like to see some language that, makes it clear that, if rain falls on the homeowner's property and it runs down grade towards the street into the sewer system, that the homeowner isn't going to somehow be responsible or denied, heaven forbid, a permit to build because it's obvious that the stormwater is going to end up in the town's storm system, which, as I understand it, where most of it ends up. So
Okay, we could put. So I think what you're saying is you want criteria for the exception to be approved by the town engineer, rather than.
I have that's another problem. I have a problem with the ultimate discretion without any standards. So I'd like to see an exception, and I don't know how to draft it, but I'd like to see an exception for ordinary stormwater that runs off a homeowner's property into the street, such that they're not going to be subject to this rule. And I don't think it should be so discretionary that one individual gets to say when and when not. I think we need an objective standard.
I agree. I think we're saying the same thing. There need to be criteria for the town engineer to make that decision. So we can bring that back. That's fine.
Yeah, and a clear exemption for ordinary rain that falls on a lot that pours down the lot into the street and the storm system. I want to make it clear for homeowners and their builders that, that is not going to be an issue because I don't think any of us want to make that an issue. And then my problem is, it says, except as approved by the town engineer, we have to have some standards for the approval or not approval. We can't be totally discretionary. We have to have some yardstick, some standards, some way of objectively deciding when and when not.
I think I just said that.
Yep, I think we've come to the conclusion that the red box would need some additional language that would indicate what the criteria is for the exception, the exceptional situations that could be approved by the town engineer. Jonathan, that's what you're asking for, right?
Yeah.
What is the criteria?
Yeah, and the same thing goes for 2.2A5 and B3 as well.
I don't know which ones you're talking about.
Well, B3 says, with respect to plumbing, as directed by the town engineer. I don't see an objective standards there. Anywhere you see language to the effect that as approved, as directed, as authorized by the town engineer. I'd like to see objective standards for when and when not. It's going to.
Those other issues aren't issues for discussion tonight. So I don't know which ones you're talking about. Is it in front of us?
I believe it's a little lower, I believe, with respect to plumbing, street
I
plumbing.
think the point is, Jonathan, we've noticed, these changes, the stormwater drainage policy update, the private utility system standards, and the construction notes section. We haven't noticed other sections to discuss. I think is what Gordon is saying, that we could, continue the discussion of this item, and ask for that criteria to be added.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to address Councilman Gunn's concerns about item 4, which is the topic of discussion and action tonight. And if there are concerns about other provisions in the standards, then I'd like those to be considered separately. And if anybody has a question, please reach out and let me know which ones are of concern.
Okay, that sounds very reasonable. So Jonathan, it sounds like we'll want to have, contact Gordon separately and talk about the additional changes that you're suggesting
Happy to do that.
beyond what's on the agenda for tonight.
Happy to do that.
Okay.
Okay, so it sounds like we're gonna table 4, and I'll get back with some criteria on that. Can we move to the next one?
Private utility system standards, we're
Right there.
Yeah, that's it. It's just that. So this was an oversight on my part when I put these standards together, because there was, we're referencing JSSD standards generally, and I kind of got into that mindset and just forgot to put this provision in. So this is just like this is identical to what you see in the drinking water section, and I'm just bringing this over to address the sanitary sewer as well. Are there any questions about this one?
Seems pretty straightforward. Private systems shall be designed the same as public systems. Systems that serve private development shall be privately owned and maintained. Okay, council members, any questions about that? All right, the next section is C, and I think this is the typical, right?
Yes. So it's everything in yellow here. So a few weeks ago, Polly brought to my attention that the town had a method by which they were, what was it called? And I can't remember the tool that they used for it, but it's is Polly with us?
Yes, Polly's on the call.
What, and where did we pull this from, Polly? I can't remember. It's a construction mitigation something or other. Where did that come
Yeah,
from?
so this is something we put together for the town of Brighton. And it's something that I've also used when I was at Park City. And the idea is that you
And I think
have a
we got it,
construction
Polly. I think
manipulation.
we got it. I think we got it somewhere else we're already implementing it somewhere else. I can't remember where that somewhere else is in the town's permits or something like that. Do you remember?
I believe it's the construction acknowledgement agreement.
Yeah. So Polly said, hey, we really ought to have this. And so I pulled all of this out of that because I thought the best place to put it was in these standards. So I just pulled it out of there and put it here. Any questions?
Yeah, hey, Gordon, it's Ralph. Just a couple of thoughts. I like a couple of these definitely. Like, I think 8 and 12. And I don't think 12 has a minimum on it. And like right now, I don't think most of our contractors, whether big or small, maybe the big ones are, but the individual one or two houses contractors, I don't see any signs that they've been putting up. It says the sizes of the sign shall be maximum 12 square feet, maximum 6. Is there a minimum here? So I mean, could they put it in, Calibre 6 point, so to speak, and qualify?
Yeah, they could put it on a recipe card, couldn't they? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good comment. So so I'd appreciate if the council chooses to adopt this, that they condition it that a minimum of whatever they want there be added. Happy to add that.
I don't know what's normal and reasonable, but I'd go with a normal and reasonable kind of approach. But I like the sign posting and then sharing that with contractors because you just don't see it, and maybe that will make them a little bit more aware of keeping things neat and tidy sometimes. So good point there. And then I thought, what was it? The other one that I looked at was
maybe a minimum could be something like I don't know, something like a campaign sign, 3 square feet or something.
Yeah, I mean maybe just half of what the maximum is or something. I don't know. I have to do a tape measure. But how about we just get back to you on that, Gordon, and you can add that later. Is that okay?
Well, well, it just holds things up. If
Yeah.
you got an idea, you could just recommend that. And
I would I'd start with 50% as the minimum. So just make it 6, 3, and 2. So I don't know. I would probably keep the lettering probably 3 inches high. I don't know, maybe it's 4 inches high. Just the size of the sign might be smaller.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that feedback. That allows us to move forward.
Okay.
So Ralph, if you're done, I'd like to ask a question. I know we already have project signs that get posted. They're the permit signs. Are we talking about the same thing? Is that the project sign is the permit sign? Does anybody know?
So to be honest with you, I didn't put any thought into these. I just grabbed them because they're already, remember, this is already implemented. The town's using this already, just in a different vehicle. And I just copied it over from that vehicle and put it into this vehicle. And
Okay.
I did that without any thought. So.
Well, we do currently have a sign standard. I believe, I think where they get printed. Somebody knows where they get printed.
Yeah, we get them done at Sinorama down in Heber. And I'm pretty sure that I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure this is the same thing they're talking about, that the sign that we order when they get their building permit and everything, and they sign the builder's agreement from Kathleen. Then we submit that order. Kathleen does, I think. Because the only thing my guys do is pick it up. We have it at the shop. Then the builder comes and gets it and is supposed to install it. And it should have the lot number, the builder's name, and all that information. And all of this stuff looks like that kind of fits that same category. The only thing you would want to do is maybe what Ralph said is say that it has to be it can't be any smaller than 6 feet, because that would make it really hard to get all the information on it. But it's pretty standard because we as the town facilitate all that for them and get the sign printed and done at our contractor that does it, and then we have them pick it up.
Okay, so we should be able to come up when I say we, the town administration, we'll ask Kathleen to help us come up with a description of the current sign standard and just make sure it's in here. And it's also in the document you lifted these from, Van Gordon. We want to, line them up. So as far as that, I think we can.
Well, we need to pull it out of the other one.
We pull it out of the other one and correct it here. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to have the same standards or in two different places. But we don't need, I don't think we need council action to take it out of wherever it is.
No, I think that's
Polly can weigh in on that. But so I'm focused on this document.
Yeah, we can address that administratively, and if for some reason we do need council approval, we'll bring that back, but Gordon's right. I mean, we want to adopt this, and state code requires that engineering standards are considered land use regulations, and therefore that's why it goes to planning commission and then council. So all of these have been to planning commission and were given a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Polly.
So I don't know who has the floor because Councilman Nadelberg has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I'll recognize Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
Hey, regarding item 5, on behalf of all us residents, me especially, who have a front row seat to the GCD development, if I had a nickel for every time I heard them fire up their machinery at 6:15, 6:30, throw the thing in the reverse with that really annoying beep, beep, beep sound and wake up the whole neighborhood, I'd be retired right now. So in line 5, can we add a sentence that says construction shall include starting up any type of machinery, trucks, graders, or anything that makes the beeping noise? Because the purpose of line 5 right here is to not disturb the people outside of those construction hours.
Sure, that's great. We can clarify that. That's great.
And by the way, when they do that, which is probably 2 out of 3 days in my experience over the last couple of years, who am I calling so that we can levy a $500 fine each time they do that? And do I need to provide video or the timestamp? How do we go about enforcing that?
Well, as far as fines, you're gonna have to talk to Polly about when fines can be levied. Let's see. I'm not sure about who they would call because the Hanson Allen Luce has taken over standard inspections. This sort of police action, I don't think falls in that category. And so I guess I'd need direction from the administration as to whom they'd want to receive that call.
Yep, so I can answer that question. So we do have enforcement officers identified who are able to cite people. I think our enforcement officers are Public Works team and the mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's, and also for certain enforcement actions, Wasatch County Sheriff Department, because they do our policing, we pay them to police for certain, for those things that would require, a public safety officer to be around. So that would be the answer. We have enforcement officers, but the question is, who do you call at 6 a.m.?
Yeah.
I don't think you call anybody at 6 a.m. because I don't know who's working at 6 a.m. and I'm not sure the mayor wants to call at 6 a.m. So I think what we should be sure we can be able to report something and turn it over to one of the enforcement officers with the required, evidence, proof, so that the enforcement actions that are necessary can be taken.
All right, so let's add that verbiage to line 5, and then maybe at the end of this meeting or for the next meeting, Chris, if we could publish something email to all the town folk who are affected by this, which is pretty much everybody on this side of the neighborhood. And that way we can start compiling the repeated violations of making noise due to construction activities outside the permitted hours. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah,
It's a-
if someone, if somebody on the council chooses to make a motion and that motion is sustained, then I would appreciate in that motion some direction on that. It doesn't have to be verbatim, but if you could cover the spirit of what you want said there, then we can incorporate that. As far as the city engineer's authority for enforcement action, I can stop work on a job, but I wouldn't do that for something like this. So indeed, it would have to come through code compliance, a code compliance officer.
Yeah, and we have code, as Mayor Pro Tem Bear said, we have code enforcement, so that's who it would go to, our public works and all that. So I don't know that that needs to be part of this, but if you, just to confirm that that's how they'll be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'd want to hear to be added to this would be the conditions that you'd want met, not the enforcement action, but the conditions, the types of conditions that you want to prohibit.
Okay, thank you. Before I recognize Ralph, I just want to let folks that are dying to give their public input know that you will get a chance. Just hang on. I'm going to go to each council member first and get their input first, and then I'll open it up for folks to have their say. All right, with that, Ralph, you have the floor.
Yeah, since we're digging into this a little bit, and it is a problem for everybody, God. But on so Bob just brought up 5. I think I was just talking about 12. Let's talk about number 8 for a second. Can you give me a definition of what it says on-site parking locations, parentheses, off-street parking, shall be designated and made continually available for all project personnel. I don't know how many times I come down, Longview or whatever, and you literally can't get around where the parking is. So half the car or 3/4 of the car, sometimes a whole truck is in the street. I get that. But sometimes there's 5 of them back to back. So is off-street parking in the context of number 8, is that also what we want to get to, that the contractor has to supply or have some thought around getting their folks off the street, and certainly off the major thoroughfares anyway. But can you provide some additional, anybody can, maybe it's policy, Polly, I don't know, who can provide some additional definition of on-site parking locations, which to me, in that parentheses says, in this regard, off-street parking. So help me on this one.
Well, so like I said, I haven't critically reviewed it because I thought it was acceptable to town. All we did is we copied it from somewhere else. And all of this language is currently in practice in the town. But my interpretation, pursuant to your question about that item, my interpretation would be, off-street parking is self-evident. That means on-site. I think the qualifier is project personnel. So I don't think project personnel, I don't think that's referring to deliveries. I think that's referring to people who are working on the site. That's my interpretation of
I would agree with you, Gordon. Yeah, on that. And hey, listen, you brought these up, so sometimes you can take a second look. We all take second look at things, so to speak. This is an important one. Maybe I missed this on our first couple of go-arounds, years ago, whatever it was. But so project personnel, I consider project personnel workers on the site, not delivery workers. Is that how you would interpret that?
Yeah, that's my interpretation. If you want that further clarified, we can specifically exclude deliveries in this language.
We could, but if delivery is going to be there for 2 days in a row, that's a tough one. I understand that's, the builders need to build and you need to get things done. But there's a lot of personnel that just park their cars right on very dangerous spots on the road. And I see their cars there or their trucks there every day. So I know it's not a delivery. I mean, they could say it's a delivery, but if it's there 5 days in a row, do you think that's a delivery at that point? I don't think so.
No, a delivery obviously is a concrete truck. It's a truck that's dropping off shingles or lumber or whatever.
Yeah. If there's any way to work with our contractors to provide better parking right up front, I'd say that would be the goal out of this one for me anyway.
Well, so I don't know how. I guess Dan would have to speak to this. He's on the front line dealing with this issue every day. So
I don't want to belabor the point, but it's not going to get any better with 1,500 additional homes being built in the town and annexations and the rest. So it would be good to have some solid wording around this.
Well, I think it's solid enough. It's just a matter of enforcement. And I know that's with a big project. For example, we've been talking about Shoreline 4. With a big project like that, that's a daunting task for Dan to consider.
Well, I'm not sure what the solution is here, but if Bob's going to be taking pictures and sending them in, I'm going to start taking pictures of vehicles that are parked in areas that are on the street that are going to that could potentially cause accidents. I mean, I've missed a couple of other cars coming from the other direction because you can't see them on a curve. And so in any case, okay, if it's a matter of
that's a very typical approach in many cities. Code enforcement for nuisances is a reactive kind of thing. They don't have people actively policing stuff like that. It's reactive, and when complaints come in from someone like Councilman Nadelberg with a video saying these guys are waking me up every morning too early, then that's typically when cities act.
All right, thank you. Appreciate all of the feedback. Ralph, did you have anything more before I get forward to the next person?
No, continue, Chris.
Okay, thank you. All right, Carol, anything you want to?
I just think that it's important to consider the width of our streets that are causing all the issues. So I'd just like to say that most of our streets are too narrow and we should work towards getting wider streets.
Thank you, Carol. Well said. That was exactly what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'll finish the council comments before I open it up to public input. And, we're stuck. Everybody knows we're stuck with our narrow streets from our previous code and the allowances that the things we allowed developers to do in the past, and we're stuck with that. Just remember, people are entitled to build on their lots, and we want them to build as quickly as possible so that they're built and we're built. So we've got to figure out a balance here that doesn't compromise public safety, but still allows their workers to park somewhere near the actual job site. We do have code enforcement, as Gordon mentioned. It is reactive. I don't think we have an easy solution here. I think somehow we've got to just figure it out. But as Carol said, one of the reasons we want to, we're talking today is to amend the engineering design standards manual, which now includes wider streets, so that we can safely park cars on both sides of the street and still have traffic paths. So, okay, with that, I'm going to open this up to public input. Just alert folks, what did we say, 3 minutes? 3 minutes is, we request you just keep your comments to 3 minutes. And, I'm gonna start in the room and recognize, anyone who'd like to go. Can you, step up to the podium and state your name?
Hi, I'm Julie Quick. I live on Sailwater Drive in Shoreline 2. I want to just say I think these are all great moves to, especially enforcement, to make sure that we're delivering against the promises that we've already made, particularly the ones around the hours. And parking on both sides of the street, I think, has been particularly treacherous in the construction zones. So that alone to me would be a move in the right direction if we got everybody on one side of the street. I did want to revisit item 5, which several of our neighbors have discussed around the weekend hours of construction, which are currently listed here as 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's very, very invasive on a Sunday morning when they're starting to do things like roofing. Or, to the point made earlier, when they're firing up the backhoe, and all those sorts of things even before that hour. I don't know how those hours were chosen. I'm hearing there's a bit of a copy and paste thing, but I would like the council to consider the Sunday hours in particular for a later start.
So I'd like to, thank you, Julie Quick, thank you very much. I'd just like to say, I don't think this is accurate. I think we already have a restriction on Sunday hours, as I recall from previous, that only with, special permission could any noisy work occur on a Sunday. And I just don't think this is correct. I think our code on Sundays is different from our Monday through Friday code, and our Saturday code, I think, is 8 to 7. That's what I remember. But I don't think we have Sunday construction hours without noisy construction hours, because I recall that we had talked about a decibel level that would be acceptable on a Sunday. And we've got a whole section of code about that. That's not recognized here.
Can I interject quickly? I did have a conversation with GCD about the Sundays, and they said, well, we're living up to the city regulations of 8 to 7. So if there is a different standard, it's not understood and certainly not being abided by.
Okay, well, we should clarify that and see if that discrepancy can be resolved.
So maybe what we should do, as I mentioned earlier, it's not good to have the same standard in 2 different locations. Maybe item 5, if it's addressed elsewhere in the code, maybe in item 5 we reference that other place in the code. Sounds like it's addressed elsewhere, and it's addressed more thoroughly elsewhere.
Yep. So Alicia and I are trying to communicate across the room, which is sign language. It's not working. But she's citing the code that says what we see here, but I'm going from my memory of a discussion that we had in council probably 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
So I'm looking at 10.432, and it does say that outside of the hours of 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. on any Saturday, Sunday, or federal holiday.
Is that the same code that has a decibel level reference?
No,
Because I distinctly remember the decibel level.
I believe I feel like I remember that as well. But I don't know where that is. So this is under the construction. This is under building and development standards, and then the building and construction. So maybe the decimal level or decibel level is under a different section, but we're talking specifically about the construction laws right now.
Sit here and read a fucking magazine.
Whoa.
We're gonna mute everybody.
Hey, Alicia, I'm looking at our town code on our Muni code. Yeah, it's 10.432, and it looks like it's it looks like it matches what we're seeing here on number 5.
Yeah, that's what
So-
Alicia said, Ralph. Doesn't
Yeah.
match my recollection.
So
Yeah, and if the council wants to change those hours, that's up to you. You can do that.
I would just interject, I think the decibel level issue could be a good addition here. I don't think any of us are upset if the tile guy comes in at 8 in the morning on a Sunday. We're upset if the roofer comes in at 6:30 and 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, so.
Agreed, because we don't want to, and I remember having this conversation, we don't want to slow down construction. We just want to avoid the nuisance of noise, especially on Sundays, and that was our intent originally. I think we've got to reconcile this because I have a distinct memory of this. Alicia kind of also remembers it. And it's possible we just have some inconsistencies here and that we do want to make these adjustments in 10.432 and also here to reflect what our current, wish is for the town as far as construction nuisance noise on Sunday.
Yeah, and you already have something in your code about decibel levels, as you remembered, and that is 5.04075 noise. Construction noise, some loud noise is inherent in construction work. During permitted construction hours on any Saturday, Sunday, or federal holiday, noise resulting from construction work must not measure more than 60 decibels, 25 feet outside the property boundary of the construction site. So if you'd like, we could add that into the construction mitigation plan just to make it front and center.
Would be great. Then I think we'd achieve our objective, not slowing down construction, but also not irritating the residents who live here, especially on the weekends and holidays. That would be perfect.
So
I have a question. Do our enforcement people have a sound decibel meter in order to measure this? Because if not, I don't know how you enforce that.
We do. We've got a meter.
Oh, great.
So my phone's a meter, your phone's a meter. I think we would probably have to get something official. So that's defensible, not just my decibel app on my iPhone, but and 60, that's very quiet. Yeah. That's really quiet.
I think those meters are relatively inexpensive. I saw at the gym where I exercise, they have loudspeakers going for people who are doing aerobic exercise and stuff, and people complain about how loud that is sometimes, and they'll go in there, just somebody from behind the desk, they'll grab an instrument and go measure that. So I think those are fairly inexpensive.
Great, good to know. Okay, so thanks, Polly, though. So that 50407 construction noise, that should be, does the council have any objection to adding that language into number 5? Is that the direction you'd like to go?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
When would it be enforced and who would enforce it on weekends?
So we have enforcement officers. Our enforcement officers don't generally work on the weekends.
That's right. So that's my question.
Well, that is the question on everything. Enforcement, right? We can have the best laws in the world if nobody's there to make sure people follow them.
Well, and that's up to you guys. I mean, you could put some resources towards having someone on the weekends, or, again, someone can memorialize it, and then you could, it doesn't stop the noise at that moment, but then there can be enforcement on Monday if it's happening on Sunday, if you have witness statements saying what happened and what evidence they have. So there are ways to address it.
Okay, thanks, Polly. We'll want to go into more detail on that another time. Meantime, I see Rich has had his hand up for a while and he's been very patient. So I'd like to give the floor to public input to Rich, who's on the Zoom.
Hi, thank you. I'm Rich Dennis, live on North Grove's Edge Drive. A similar question. This is GCD, so let's not pretend that they're going to follow anything we try to get them to enforce. If they are starting up constructions, equipment on a Sunday at 6 a.m., why can't we just call the sheriff? Because I can't imagine anybody that's lived in this neighborhood more than 2-3 years ringing up Glenn on a Monday and telling him that his people need to chill on Saturday and Sunday. You think he's going to care? So what are we going to do to really make this happen? Because with all this bare land now to the south of us, this is going to be going on for a long, long time. We've talked about all the problems. I agree that they're going to be, the noise is going to be a problem. I don't have a decibel reader. I'm not about to go out and buy one, but I know that 6 a.m. is earlier than 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. So can we just call law enforcement? I mean, they're not going to care if we tell them on Monday what they did on Saturday or Sunday. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rich. So if folks are, you can call Wasatch County Sheriff's Department, they do provide our law enforcement. We do not typically call them on something like this. We do rely on our enforcement officers. So that's currently our public works people and I believe the mayor to do that. We do have fines and we have a fee schedule where those fines are outlined. I don't have that in front of me. I don't know if anybody can pull that up quickly. What we would charge, you know, if is there an escalating charge? First offense, second offense, third offense, somehow to try to dissuade them from this behavior. Ultimately, Rich and everyone, what we're trying to do is just get them to not exhibit this behavior. You know, we're not whatever it takes, but okay, now we have another hand. So I heard the JD Cronin, you have the floor.
Why don't we just change the hours on Sunday? Period.
Yes, please.
Okay, we can, well, the council can change the hours for sure. Remember,
Yeah.
we're trying to balance out not having construction last for the next 50 years. We really would
get it.
like the construction to go over as quickly as possible and not slow them down.
That's fair. That's fair, but like, you know, yeah, I get that. I'm generally pro development and stuff, getting stuff going around the town. But you know, if this is truly a nuisance, which it sounds like it is to some folks, I think it's, you know, doing something about it that's a little more reasonable. 10 to 4, 10 to 5, whatever is going to work. You know, I think seems like a reasonable compromise here.
All right, thanks for your input, JD.
Sure.
All right, any other public input? You see any hands up, Alicia? Okay, anybody else in the room? All right, wait, Rachel. Okay, Brian Cooper, you have the floor.
Yeah, it's Brian lurking again. I just want to reinforce a comment that Gordon made earlier. Polly cited a section on the decibel reading. I wouldn't repeat that here. I would just refer to it in this and change the hours and then refer to the decibel reading. So you only have it in one place in the document. That way you avoid duplication and problems with document management.
Thanks, Brian.
One other comment. What I do when I see one of the residents had talked about workers parking on both sides of the road, and that happens a lot. Whenever I drive through there, I stop, I talk to the worker and I said, "You're going to get a fine if you're parking on this side of the road. Move your car," and they usually do. So it's just something we can do as residents to be proactive.
Brian, thank you. We appreciate your assistance in doing that. I have thought about doing that and then decided against it.
And personally, for safety reasons.
Right. So, although I have talked to people in the past on my home street when it became extraordinarily irritating. But anyway, okay. With that, I'm going to close public input. And now I'm going to come back to the council. So this is our first public hearing of 2 more. And then a third, fourth, that'll be brief. Council, what would you like to do with this? We have, these items have been in front of the planning commission. The planning commission has made their positive recommendation. Come to us because it's a matter of land use. Is there any format in which you would like to adopt these amendments to the engineering design standards manual tonight?
I think we've pointed out a number of tweaks. And I'd like to see it come back with a new iteration with the, you know, with the tweaks that we've talked about before we vote on it.
So, kind of a point of order for Polly. Does that mean this goes back to the planning commission before it comes back to us?
No, you can, the council can change it, so it does not need to go back to planning commission.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I would ask the question, for example, the second one, there were no comments on that. I would ask the council to take action on the ones that they think they can and the ones that they think they can condition and not hold those up.
Thank you, Gordon. That's a great recommendation. So I would say the construction notes. I think there's more work to be done there. Then B, the private utility system standards, there was no feedback or pushback or Anything to change? Number 4, sorry, the private utility system standards part. And then going back to the very first line, the very first area, we had a little bit of feedback from Councilmember Gunn, asking for criteria for an exception. So is that also something you wouldn't want to take action on, number 4 tonight?
Yes, absolutely. That's the primary one.
Yeah, if I understood correctly, on the third one, we already have the code in place, and unless the council wants to change some hours. So there's nothing pursuant to the discussion I've heard so far. There's nothing I can do with this to bring it back to you differently. And so if there are directions, then I would ask that you just give those and we approve it with the directions and move on.
Okay, so just for review, we had questions about number 12, that was assigned specs. We had questions about number 5. That got the most feedback. That was the construction hours, where we talked also about a reference to the construction noise portion of the code. And then we had discussion about number 8, on-site parking locations. So council members, what would you like to do?
Once again, I think it needs to be reworked and brought back.
I think we can take some action tonight, Jonathan, if you guys are willing. We could adopt this with some changes to the hours, as Gordon said. If you want to change the construction hours, we could adopt number 5 also that I'm showing by referencing the construction noise portion of the code, 5.04.07, for that line item. We could let the sign specs just ride because it's not, because the town prints the signs, so we're in control of the signs. As far as on-site parking locations, we talked about that as well, and we, as you know, we're limited in where people can park. So I don't feel like there's much we can do on this, except, as Gordon suggested, if we wanted to make changes to number 5, which would be the hours, or add that reference to construction noise so we can try to control the decibel level during the weekends and holidays, those could be effective additions to here.
Yeah, without belaboring it, I wouldn't be able to do anything with this without specific directions. And so when you give me specific directions, then it's done. I just implement them.
Well,
I can't create this without you giving me directions.
Well, I've already indicated I'm perfectly willing to send you emails on email with respect to my thoughts. I imagine that the other council members are willing to do the same.
Oh, well, so I'm not suggesting, I'm totally on board with the first item, Councilman Gunn. I'm just talking about this item in front of us, this yellow one.
Okay, so
I'm suggesting that the council adopt number 2, the second one, and all of this with specific directions, and then we can massage the first one,
which is a stormwater drainage policy. So that's what Gordon is proposing. Yes. That one, that portion we would not adopt and massage it with further refinement. Carol, did you have something you want to add? I heard you speak up. And I'm going to go to each council member, so be prepared, you guys, because we heard from Jonathan. Now I'm going to go to Carol.
So I'm going to talk about number 5 and suggest that we change the hours. Can I suggest
to what?
Can I suggest hours?
Yeah.
Okay.
And is this for Saturday, Sunday holiday?
Mostly Saturday, Sunday. Is everyone seem to be in agreement with the 7 to 7 Monday through Friday?
Yes.
We could leave that. So
I'm in agreement. I don't know what everyone is.
Okay, I would suggest then that we change the hours to 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, Sunday, and federal holidays.
So just let me throw this out to you. I heard one of the members of the audience talk about a tile layer. If somebody wants to come and put tile in on the inside of the house on a weekend, they don't make any noise whatsoever. Are we not allowing that to happen? So this is the
Right,
question.
no,
Are we
I-
not allowing that to happen? We want them to be able to park in front of the site properly, go in and quietly lay their tile that nobody knows about or hears about, on the weekend from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Do we want to restrict that, or is that our intent, or is that not our intent?
I think it's going to be extremely hard to enforce what is quiet and what, someone's putting in something inside that's loud. And then, it's just kind of hard. You just have rules that are easy to enforce.
Right, and if you want my opinion, wouldn't the workers be happy that they didn't have to start until 10 o'clock in the morning?
No.
So,
No.
oh, because they want the hours, they want the wages, okay.
Public input is closed, I'm sorry. Okay.
I still am going to say that I think that we should amend it to say 10 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Saturday, Sunday, or federal holidays.
Great, thanks, Carol. Since I'm a council member, I'm gonna give you my opinion as well. I think I told you this, when I was building my house, I wanted them to work every day of the week, if they would, so that I could be done. And I think everybody who is, in that situation, you're waiting for something to be finished, you want them to finish it. The longer, a project is delayed, the more it costs, the more difficult it is. As long as somebody is respectful, quiet, doesn't start beep, 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 backing up at 6 a.m. I just, want them to be done as quickly as possible. So I've always been in favor of the longer days, even on the weekends, because, and as you know, a lot of these folks, they don't live up here. They possibly have a long drive to come and do their work. They want a full day of work. And so is it that much of a public nuisance that we feel there's that much of a public nuisance that we would want to restrict the ability of the workers and the people who are trying to get a project completed? Would we really want to be restricting them in that way?
Yes, of course. On Sundays, yes. On Sundays especially.
Okay, anybody else have any comments about the hours? So, this is our opportunity to make changes. We heard, Carol wanted, what was it, 10 to
5.
Sunday, 10, it was all weekend, 10 to 5, and holidays?
Yeah, I agree with Carol. It's, and it's kind of like a speed limit, you post 55, everyone's gonna go 65 or 70, but not 80. So yeah, 10 to 5, Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. And knowing darn well they're gonna violate that, but we still can have a modicum of peace and quiet. So I would be in favor of that.
All right, anything from Ralph?
Well, we know how bad the noise is around here. It'd be better if we could control it, but it looks like the only way we can control this is by hours. You also have a good point, Chris. You want to move things along as quickly as possible. It's hard to know exactly where the justification is. Do we have any references from what some of the other towns do, so to speak, where there's a lot of building? I don't know if that, just as a reference point, I'd love to hear that, but I'm okay if we change the hours to 10 to 5, or I'm okay if we start later in the morning. I'm okay if we end, the 7 o'clock, because people are up at that point. So, there's going to be less disturbance. So, just want to start at 10, that works. If you want to keep it to 7, that works for me. If you want to change it to 5, I'm open to that as well.
I'm also good with some, 9 or 10 as a starting time to, 6 or 7. I'm okay on that. I see I see both sides of the story, but clearly, 8 in the morning on a weekend is a little early.
Okay, well, I think it's gonna be important that we do pass the sanitary sewer system section tonight. As far as the construction notes section and the stormwater drainage policy update. It's really up to the council. If you guys want to change the hours on number 5, now's the time to do it. But I think at this point, I'm looking for a motion.
I move to change the hours as discussed.
To what, Bob? Because the multiple things were discussed.
We can go 10 to 5 Saturdays, Sundays and holidays.
And is your motion also to adopt those two amendments? So with the two proposals along with that amendment?
Sure.
Okay, I need a motion that's better worded. So, Bob, do you want me to help you with
Sure.
that?
Yes.
Okay, if I'm hearing it right, I think you're making a motion to adopt. This would be B, the private utility system standards as you see in the handout. And then C, the construction notes section with the change to number 5, which would be to change the construction hours from, and now tell me the hours, Bob?
Let's go 10 to 5 on the weekends and holidays.
10 to 5 on weekends and holidays. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Carol. Alicia, did you get all that? Okay, thank you. All right, now I will poll the council. Jonathan,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Chris. Yes, even though I'm not happy about the hour change, but. All right, so the motion carried. Thank you. Everyone?
Sorry,
Yes.
we also moved to table the first piece.
Okay, thank you.
To the
So
next
I need a motion then to, you said table would be the right?
Or continue.
Continue to the next meeting.
Thank you, thank you. So a motion to continue to the next meeting, the stormwater drainage policy update.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get those? Okay, Carol,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Chris is a yes. All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Jonathan, so how about I take first crack at it and send you those criteria on this one, and we'll iterate on that till we get it right.
Happy to work with you.
Okay, terrific, thank you. All right, with that, we're going on to public hearing item number 2. I'll get there in a moment with the PowerPoint, I mean the PDF here. Okay, public hearing number 2 is discussion and possible approval of a resolution amending the Hideout budget for the fiscal year of 24-25. That's the year we're in now. Okay, for this item, Jen and Katie, are you both on?
Yes, I'm going to be presenting it, and if there's any questions that I can't answer, Jan will step in.
Okay, Katie, will you be displaying your screen for the presentation?
No, I
Or-
believe it's in I think it's in the package. So if you want to scroll down to the package, I can
Okay,
also do mine, but
No, I can do that. I just have to get there. All right, give me a moment to click and we will be there. Okay, this is the resolution. Let me go down to the,
28 of 60.
okay, am I there? I'm in the right place?
Yeah. No, it should be
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I think I gotta make it smaller, right, to fit more, or, oops, that's the opposite of smaller. Okay, is that big enough? I think we almost see everything on one page.
yes, that
Can
looks
everyone-
good.
Okay, go ahead, Katie, you have the floor.
Okay, so this is the restatement. So we've gone through, we've gotten all the actuals through the end of April, and we've got our forecast out there for May and June. So the plan here is just to adjust the FY25 budget to align with the FY25 actuals and forecast. So what I'd like to do is walk you through some of the changes that were made and some of the variances and why we have these budget adjustments. So the first one you can see is that we're about 279,000 unfavorable in revenues. The really good news here is we're unfavorable because we did not need a transfer of funds from MIDA or the Class C road funds. We were going to use some funds from MIDA for some municipal expenses and MIDA development for some development expenses, as well as Class C road funds to fund some of our street roads and repairs. But we've done a great job on operational efficiency as well as really looking at our streets and trying to determine what needs to be done now versus what can be done next year and the year after. So we did not need approximately $300,000 from the MIDA or Class C road funds, and those funds could be used in the future to cover municipal expenses, development and growth, as well as repair of streets. So the benefit really comes from we had lower salaries and benefits because we primarily didn't hire the engineer or the public works employees. And so we've got some offsetting expenses there in the professional services. So we've got some unfavorability in the professional services, but it's offset by lower advisory expense as well as some accounting and finance fees. We also had higher legal expenses. So net, they washed out in the professional expenses and professional services line. We also had some significant improvements on our lower street repairs and maintenance and supplies. We didn't need as many repairs and maintenance as we did as prior years because we did a lot of crack sealing and slurry sealing and asphalt repair last year. So we didn't have to do as much this year. Now you'll see going into next year, we're going to have to do some more. So we will need some of those funds next year. We also had some favorability in that parks, community development and matching grants. We thought we'd get a grant this year and we would have matching expenses associated with it. We are still very confident about the grant that we will get it, and you'll see it going into next year rather than getting it this year. But because we didn't have to spend those expenses because we had a 50% matching, we have favorability in the parks, communication and matching grants associated with that matching grant of 50 grand, as well as we didn't spend as much as we were going to on parks and recreation. And then the slight offsetting unfavorability in debt services is that we paid off the mini excavator loan for an asset that was retired last year. So net, you can see that we are balancing our budget. Our budget was 0 as a surplus or deficit, and we are still the same for the FY25 actuals and forecast, but we have a flip between the revenues and expenses. Can I answer any questions as it relates to the general fund restatement of budget?
I don't think so. I think it's very clear.
So if you want to go, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure the council members on the Zoom don't have any questions before we keep going.
Good for me. Thanks, Katie.
Okay, let's go forward with the enterprise fund. You can see that we're approximately $79,000 favorable in revenue because we had higher water and sewer connection fees. We're doing very well as it relates to building permits. We have a lot more building permits than we had anticipated having, and we hope to have about 123 building permits this year, and we have more COs as well. So we've got some good news coming in from higher water and sewer connection fees, but it's offset by some lower standby fee interest. And then you can see for the expenses, we are very favorable, approximately $216,000. And the predominance of that is due to lower salaries and benefits. Again, we did not hire the engineer and the public works employee. And we also did not have as we thought we were going to have approximately 6 to 8% increase in JSSD charges, and we did not have an increase in charges. Slight increase in the reserve water fund, but the primary water sewer storm rates did not go up as anticipated. So net, we're about $296,000 favorable. So we want to adjust the budget to reflect that and 300,000 is great news to us, and we'll put it in the fund balance for future projects that we need to do.
All right, fantastic and good news. Thank you.
Okay, then the next one would be the municipal. And you can see I have the municipal, MIDA municipal and MIDA development. What these funds are really from is from the MIDA area, which is Deer Springs, Deer Waters, Lakeview, and Claim. All of our property taxes and sales taxes and municipal energy go into these two funds. And the Fund 23, you can see we're favorable by about $161,000. And that 158,000 is directly associated with that unfavorability you saw in the general fund. So when you saw that 312,000 unfavorable in the general fund, you see the offsetting 158,000 good news here, and you'll see the rest in the Class C road funds. So we're maintaining all those funds except for the 56,000 we are going to use this year, or we're forecasting to use this year. All those funds get to be put into next year to cover municipal expenses. And then you can see in the MIDA development, at this point in time, we weren't going to take any from MIDA development and growth, but we're hoping to be able to put that in for next year and the year after, because we really want to grow the town. And some of the funds in this fund, some of the dollars in this fund go for growth and development. I'd like to just let everyone know that we do not have the numbers yet for FY25. We're hoping to get those from the assessor's office by the end of May. We're hoping at this point in time, they're a little bit more favorable, meaning we get more dollars. But at this point in time, we see ourselves relatively flat for the municipal and the development, except for that 158,000, which is an offset to the unfavorability in the general fund. Again, we didn't use those funds this year, and we will use them in subsequent years. The next page is our Class C road funds, and you can see the other 165,000. So if you took the 165,000 here and the 158,000 from the MIDA, that's approximately the 312,000 unfavorable. So net, it washes itself out, but these funds again can be used next year and the year after to do major street repairs or major renovations in the future. So we've got some pretty good news coming through and really good management of our costs, and our property taxes, sales taxes, and municipal energy taxes are coming through very strong. So what I'd like to do is just, if anyone has any questions, and the resolution is really to say that you will adopt the new actual plus forecast expectations, replace that with our budget, and we'll file that with the state.
You need a resolution, so moved.
I'll second.
Hold on, before you do that, we're in a public hearing, so I do have to open it up to public input. Before I do that, do the council members have any further comments or questions besides to tell Katie she's doing a fantastic job?
Yes. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Katie.
Anytime.
Okay, with that, I do have to open it up to public input, so I'm gonna start in the room. Anyone have any questions or comments about the budget revisions? All right, nobody in the room. I got all shaking heads. Anybody online have any questions or comments?
Yeah. Hi, this is Brian again. Just a comment. I know in the infrastructure master plan for the water system, we originally wanted to put in another pressure regulating valve to allow the higher homes here, like especially in Shoreline 1, which have very low water pressure, to get up to about 60 PSI. Does this budget include that? Because I don't know where we are on that.
This budget for FY25 didn't specifically address that. We do have funds in FY26 for some sewer, storm, and water repairs and maintenance. I would have to defer that specific question on that topic, I guess, to Gordon or Dan.
So I'll speak first. So we have, we're underway with a drinking water master plan that would identify capital projects. I haven't seen that list of what the firm has come up with. that's where it belongs. It belongs in that capital facilities plan. And so unless Dan knows something else, would be waiting until that plan is finished.
This first I've heard of adding a PRV to up the pressure in any areas or zones. That's news to me, but I think that's again what Gordon said needs to be added to that they're working on so that it is done properly and we make sure that it's done the way it's supposed to and we get it in the right place and we're not just doing it.
Yeah, Dan, I know because I chaired the infrastructure committee a couple of years ago, and a couple of years ago it was in there with the plan that TO engineers put together, because that was one of the concerns was shoreline 2 was having too high a pressure and shoreline 1 too low. And so the only way to solve that was adding a PRV.
And again, back then I was, you know, like I said, I'm not saying that it wasn't in there. I'm just saying this is the first I've heard of adding one. And I have no issues with that. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. It just needs to be done through engineering and make sure that it's in the right place and that it's going to do what we wanted it to do and not have adverse effects somewhere else. So
agree.
Can you send that? I apologize for forgetting your first name.
Brian Cooper.
What is it?
Brian Cooper.
Brian. Okay, Brian and I have talked before, and but I've talked with a lot of people up there, so I apologize. Brian, would you have my email address, I believe? Would you be willing to send me an email with your concerns, and we will evaluate them while we're modeling the system?
Okay, be happy to do that, Gordon.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Brian. We always appreciate all of the work that you do for the town in helping us along, and thank you for your work on the infrastructure committee in the past. And thanks, Gordon, for requesting that participation. We really appreciate that. Okay, with that, any other public input on the budget amendment for this fiscal year? Okay, we don't see anyone. So with that, I think we're going to close public input. And at this point, then I'll come back to the council and see if anybody would like to make a motion to approve the resolution amending the fiscal budget for the 24-25 year. I'll move. Hey, Carol.
Second.
Okay, Bob has a second. Okay, Jonathan.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
Chris. Yes. Bob.
Yes.
Carol. Yes. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you all. Okay, now we're going to move on.
I have a question because we didn't talk. Are we talking about the 26 budget at this point, or because this was a resolution to finish off the 25 year, which makes sense, but we also have data in there that are we going to is that on the agenda for this meeting? Because
Yeah, we're talking about that next, Ralph. It's next on the agenda.
Okay, I wasn't sure because I saw some other stuff. Good, thanks, Katie. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Ralph, sorry. All right, we're moving on to number 3, and that is the review and consideration to approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 25-26, which is next year, and establish the time and place to adopt the final budget. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Katie, and then I'm going to try to display the right thing. So give me a second.
So Brian, your timing was excellent because as we work through the FY26 budget, we also kind of look at the 10-year plan. And those are the type of things we definitely need to understand and talk through. So thank you for bringing that up. And I made note of it as well to see what we needed to do from a depreciation schedule and funding for these projects going forward. So thank you. All right. What I'd like to go through now is the preliminary plan for FY26. There's still some items outstanding at this point in time, but I'll go through where we're at this point in time. Our taxes are favorable. We're looking quite good on property taxes again. This is the non-MIDA taxes in the general fund. And as I said, the MIDA taxes are in the MIDA fund. So we hope to see an 8.3% increase in COs. So that is causing us to have some favorability in our taxes. And we also have favorability associated with the spend those people will bring for sales tax. And we've added a little piece of inflation on top of that. So we've got the inflation at about 3% this year. And we've got the property tax and sales for COs up about 8.3%. The license and permits, we do believe we're going to have fewer building permits next year. We think we're going to have about 100 of them versus 123 this year. So we do have fewer building permits, which is bringing about $117,000 on favorability and lower roadway fees of about $50,000. And that's being offset slightly by some higher 5.5% inspection fees that we have for new subdivisions. Of good note there is the fact that when you see the negativity in the fewer building permits and the higher inspection fees, we obviously have corresponding expense savings associated with those building permits and the expenses, as well as expense increases associated with the inspection fees. So we do have the unfavorability here, the license and permits, but we do have some favorability down below associated with that. Miscellaneous revenues. We talked a lot a few minutes ago about fines for developer violations. We are going to get a lot more strict on those going forward. And we really feel that we're going to have some good revenue coming in associated with that, at least for a few months, until the developers understand that we are going to be assessing the fines. And so we've got some good news in there associated with the fines we'll be charging, as well as we have some grant revenue in there. Both of those are offset by slightly lower interest rate expectations going into FY26. Our contributions and transfers, here's where I talked about last year, we didn't use the funds from MIDA, or we used fewer funds than we thought. In FY25, I think we're going to use $52,000 of those MIDA funds. But next year, we are planning to use more of the MIDA and development and municipal cost funds. We will not use the Class C road funds because we're going to try and accumulate those for really major road repairs in the future. But we are going to be doing a lot more from a growth and development perspective. So you'll see down below, we've got some advisory and we've got some investments we're trying to make into the town from an expense perspective. So to be able to fund those, we are going to take some of the MIDA development costs and funding from the MIDA fund and move those to the general fund. And we're going to cover some costs to run the city from the municipal fund, MIDA fund. So we're planning on taking about $425,000. Now you saw last year we were going to take about $300,000 and we didn't have to use any of it, or we had to use $52,000 of it. Next year we're planning on using quite a bit of it. However, we will still monitor our expenses and really take a tight control of our expenses to see where we can come up with some savings to not have to take as much. But I do believe it is for growth and development. And I think we all would like to see our town grow and develop and get maybe some commercial in there, some parks and trails, and really start becoming a bigger town/city. Offsetting some of this favorability, and again, majority of the favorability is coming from the funds from MIDA. We have higher salaries, wages and benefits because we have a 4% COLA, a 4%, that should actually say a 3% 401k match, and a 5.5% healthcare benefit increase. Again, that should say 3%, not 4%. So you can see we've got some unfavorability associated with that. We do not have any major new. We've got an intern coming in for a couple months, and that's about the only additional headcount we have for next year, and it's only for a couple months to support. Administration, we have some little bit of unfavorability in the administration, primarily due to 3%, the 3% inflation. We have election year coming up, so we're going to have some additional expenses associated with the election that's going to occur in November. And we have some we're doing some additional stipends or some stipends for the council because our council members and our mayor are not paid, but we'd like to give them a little stipend for their participation in these going forward. We also have some membership that we want to invest a little bit more in our people and make sure that they can keep their membership certifications up and go for new certifications as applicable. Professional services, we do have a lot of money coming in for advisory services. As I said, we'd like to really see some more growth and development. We're looking at a lot of different things in the town for next year. We have some additional dollars out there for some communications and a website to do a really good job keeping all of the town people informed as to what's going on. We have some additional legal costs of about 40,000 and engineering charges of about 45,000. And those engineering charges, again, are offsetting some of the 5.5% inspection fee we saw above. Some of this is partially offset by lower building permit fee expense. So we don't have as many building permits, so we don't have as many expenses associated with those. Streets were about 77,000 unfavorable. We do anticipate to have some additional street repairs and maintenance going into next year, doing a little bit more from a slurry seal and some more asphalt and repairing some of the cracks in some of the streets. Parks and development, I talked above in the miscellaneous revenue about $50,000 in grant revenue. So we have the $50,000 in grant expense that we'll pay, but we also have a matching grant expense that we are going to pay. So for the 50,000 we get 50,000 of expense, and the town also invests 50,000. So we really get a nice benefit from the grant, but because we have the match, we also have to incur the net bottom line 50 grand expense. So then we have some favorability in the debt services because in FY25 we wrote off the Mini X loan, and this year we don't have any loans or anything outstanding that we feel we'll have to be paying for. I'll stop there to answer any questions people might have.
I have a question, Katie. So we're ping-ponging a little bit on the MIDA fund, so to speak, from one year to another. Any thoughts on how long that might occur? I mean, my own personal thought is you can't smooth that out until you have some other source of revenues, but would love your thoughts.
Yeah, at this point in time, my best estimate is, like I said, it's going to be the 425, but hopefully our legal costs won't be as much next year as they were this year. So hopefully those will come down a little bit. If we don't spend the 80,000 in advisory, obviously, then we won't be taking as much from the MIDA development. At some point in time, you know, with some of the expenses that we do have, if we don't do the street repairs and maintenance, or, you know, we end up saying, okay, we can do asphalt repair instead of slurry sealing, so it might be cheaper. Those type of things we can continue to look at. But the MIDA and the MIDA funds, the developer municipal funds, basically those are property taxes from those 4 subdivisions I made mention of. And we, so at some point in time, we do want to start using those because we are going to have some additional expenses in the general fund, and we also want to develop and grow the town. So at this point in time, I can't say we're going to use the 425 as we didn't use the 350 last year, but I believe if we want to continue to try and really do what's best for the town, and we need to invest in it, and we need to be able to spend some of these dollars that are available to us. I don't know if that answered your question, because I don't really have anything specific to say that we wouldn't be spending those.
Maybe it's a side conversation, but we definitely would like to look at, you know, certainly after going forward, what are our risks on some of these big items that, you know, that move 708%, so to speak, back and forth, and you know, where is the town at risk in the next 18 months the most? And then on some funds, what are we using that, you know, we're using them to pay off a debt, or we're using them for expenses essentially. Whereas to your point, I think we also want to use them for potential amenities. So how do we smooth those numbers out? Again, would love your thoughts, and maybe it's just not on this call,
Well,
but,
you are gonna see though, Ralph, when we talk about the MIDA,
mhm.
I'm taking only 100,000 from the municipal, but I'm taking 265,000 from the development. So I really feel that, if we choose not to develop and not to do some of the things that we'd like to see to help develop the town next year, we won't use those. So we are kind of segregating now to say, how much am I going to use for municipal? That can only be for municipal expense, which is that 100,000. And what are we going to do from an investment perspective? So if we decide not to do that investment or something else comes up, we can always pull back on some of the advisory costs that we have out there, as well as some of the communications. And we can find some additional savings by saying, okay, we might not be able to do as much from a matching grant perspective, or we need to delay some of the street repairs. But I'm hoping based, with us reviewing the financials on a quarterly basis with the town council, we can kind of get your guidance to say, what can we continue moving forward on and what should we pull back on? If costs end up going through the roof for one area, we will have to cut back another. But if we have savings, obviously, we might be able to leave it in the coffers for another year or do a little bit more investment.
Yeah, and I don't want to belabor this, but you have sources and uses of funds, and of course, uh, it would be good to look at the choices that we have going forward, whether it's paying an expense down or adding some amenity to the town where we have some of these funds to be available to either one of those, and then have choices,
Mhm.
So that's the breakdown I'd like to see. So maybe we can do that separately, but,
And that would
go
be
ahead.
great, Ralph. And I can tell you, some of them are like, if we want to do the Ross Creek development versus how
Uh-huh.
much are we going to do for annexations versus others. So those are the puts and calls we can definitely talk through and would be a great discussion.
Yeah, okay, we can do that later. Thanks.
All right, Katie, you ready to move on to
Sure.
the enterprise fund?
Yep.
Could I just join the conversation for a minute? We've got some modeling going on that we're doing on Ross Creek, and we'll be looking at a deeper dive on those MIDA funds. So yeah, we're in growth mode, and the EDC actually will be evaluating some of those decisions on investing and what we do with Ross Creek.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Okay, Katie, go ahead and move on to enterprise fund, please.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to talk about the enterprise fund now. We do have higher residential water services fees coming in, and you can see it's about 13.2%. That is due to an 11.9% increase in COs, which includes a 3% inflation, as well as we did put in as a 3%, less than we had put in last year because we didn't get a big increase last year. We really didn't get an increase last year. We're putting in a 3% average increase from JSSD as our best estimate at this time because we don't have a number from JSSD. We're expecting it to a 6% increase in January, so I smoothed it out to say a 3% for the year. I kept standby fees flat. And then other enterprise revenue is primarily due to lower sewer and water connection fees because we have 23 fewer building permits because we're expecting 100 versus 123. So net our revenues are favorable by $200,000, and our expenses. You can see we've got the offsetting expenses for the 4% for COLA, 3% for the 401k matching, and we have about a 5.5% healthcare benefit increase. The Public Works Department, we do have some higher sewer, water, and storm repairs and maintenance, and we're still working through those at this point in time, but we've got some identified items that we are going to be looking to repair that would be higher than this year. Some general water expense, that's primarily just your JSSD increase that we're anticipating in January. Administrative expenses, the same as the general fund, 3% inflation. We have an election year, council pay, and membership. Professional, we have a little bit higher legal and slightly higher accounting and finance services. But nothing too major as it relates to the professional area and the enterprise fund. And then we're expecting, we've added a Bobcat sweeper, so we're going to have a little bit more depreciation expense next year. Net bottom line, we have a surplus of $246,000 in FY26, which is very similar to our surplus in FY25. So we're controlling our costs. We're going to do some more maintenance and repairs, but we're able to fund those with our higher fees associated with the additional certificates of occupancy.
Thank you, Katie. Move on to the MIDA.
Sure. The next is the MIDA. And again, we're really starting to look at the MIDA, municipal and development, because the MIDA areas have really grown. It's again, the Deer Waters, the Deer Springs, Lakeview, and Claim. And those have had a lot of growth over the last couple of years, and we've been getting some really good revenues in. So we're anticipating about a 21% increase in certificates of occupancy for the MIDA area. And there's a corresponding, there's minimal expenses associated with the administration of that from MIDA. But you can see what I talked about earlier. I'd like to transfer 107,000, 108,000 from the MIDA municipal fund to the general fund. And that'll cover general municipal expenses. We don't use growth and development out of this fund because this is straight for municipal services. So to the extent those areas are using municipal services of the town, this is 100,000 that the MIDA funds are going to be covering some of the general funds because obviously those 4 subdivisions are utilizing municipal services. Same if you look at the development. The development has come in with some great dollars. I'm planning about $653,000 next year. That's about a 21% increase. Now there's some little bit of offset in there from expenses, from some offsets that we have in the revenue area for our revenues, but a 20% increase is very significant year on year. And we're still waiting to make sure our FY25 estimates are good. And in FY24, we had an estimate and we really blew past that estimate. So we're kind of hoping FY25 might be higher. And FY26, then we will increase for the final budget in June. But we do have some really good funds in the MIDA Development Fund that we have accumulated. And next year, to what Jan says on the Ross Creek, any annexation, any other development that we would like to be working on to grow the town, we're planning on taking about $266,000 out of the MIDA development to move it to the general fund to cover some of those advisory and communications and general growth areas that we're planning in the general fund. So that kind of wraps up where we are from the MIDA. I did not put anything out there for the Class C road funds. We will continue to see some great news coming through in the Class C road funds. We got $165,000 this year. We anticipate a similar amount because we really didn't add any new roads in FY25. So we anticipate another 165,000 next year, and we'll start accumulating those funds for road repairs or road renovations in the future. So that's the preliminary budget. If anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I'll add one more question, and that is, since we're looking out, in the 26, what would you characterize as the biggest risks to our budget? And I'll preface that with with another question. The transient room tax looks terrible. What did we get? $600 this year out of our TRT, and only going up $126, but we haven't made much money on that piece. I'm not going to drill into that, but I would love your opinions on what are our biggest risks to the budget going forward.
The biggest risk to the budget is obviously if there's any slowdown in the economy. However, what really is nice about the general fund is we really don't make any money on our building permits or subdivisions or anything of that, because to the extent we have fewer or more building permits, we're going to have fewer or less expenses. So those aren't ones that I'm particularly fearful of. If we had any major street repairs or sewer repairs, that would be something that we don't have a lot of money in for anything major at this point in time. Our legal costs, they are significant, and we really, like I said, if we're going to try to really start honing in on those legal costs and trying to figure out, how we can do a better job reining in any issues that we have from a town perspective. But I feel I've got, $400,000 in there for legal, but if those go up or if there are any issues associated with that, that could be a major risk as well. Other than that, we can really control the revenues and expenses that come in that are general day-to-day stuff. It's those one-offs that if we have anything major occurring or any major incidents, then that would give us cause for concern. Especially in the general fund. We've got a lot of funds in the enterprise fund to be able to cover because we have a lot in our fund balance. We don't have as much in our general fund balance, but we do have some really good funds available to us in MIDA fund balance that if we had to cover additional risk, we could move more out of MIDA, but that just hampers us in the future not to be able to have those funds when they might be needed as well. And at some point in time, you can't continue to use your growth and development funds to cover any shortfalls that are happening from a one-off or an incident or a high-risk street or sewer or water repair.
Yeah,
Right, thank
agreed.
you.
And knowing street and sewer and legal and having a good kind of estimate going forward, keeping a close track on that, I think would make a lot of sense for all of us here. So,
Yeah, and what
okay,
we're really
thanks.
trying to do, and I know Gordon's is looking at it, is putting the cameras down our sewer lines and really making sure that they're in good shape. And once that camera, that's some of the costs that we have coming in May and June, as well as early next year. We have to, if something shows up in those cameras that are going to require something major, obviously that could cause some issues. But I like the fact that Gordon brought up the 5 and 10-year capital plan, because that really gives us a solid understanding of what funds are going to be needed in the future for us to be able to say, okay, if we have this big risk, here's the funds we have available to it, and here's the downstream benefits if we fix it now, that type of thing.
Yep.
And by the way, we've got a bid coming for that in the next few days, I should say. Next week.
Excellent.
Let's give them a bit of time, but it's coming.
Which is nice, Gordon, because I do have some funds in there for April or for May and June in the forecast, with the hopes to be able to pay for some of that this year and get it started. So that would be great.
Well, I'm optimistic we can do all of that. It's a different technology. We're not using video. We're using sound. And anyway, we'll have a bid for that very soon.
Excellent. So, the devil's in the detail, Ralph. If something major pops up in the sewer lines, obviously we find ways to be able to fund that. And again, the water fund, we do have some good reserves out there. Or fund balance, not specific. We do not have reserves. It's the fund balance available to us.
Yeah, thanks for all that, guys.
Great, thank you. Any other council members have questions, feedback? Okay, with that, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open this up to public input. I'm going to start in the room. Anyone have any input over the tentative budget for next year? All right, bunch of head shaking, no. And now I'll open it up to anyone on the Zoom meeting. Raise your hand if you would like to speak about the tentative budget. Okay, I don't see any hands, so I'm going to go ahead and close public input. So part of this item is also establishing the time and place to adopt the final budget. So I think we should have a discussion about that before we try to go to a motion. I think we're expecting to adopt the final budget in the next regular council meeting on June 12th. Anybody have any council members want to do?
Do we usually do it in June?
Yes, we do. We do. In fact, we have a deadline. What's our deadline? I think it's the Jan, Katie, Alicia.
End of June. We need to have it done by.
We
And you
need,
have to have it done by the end of June, and you also need to set the time and place of the public hearing for the final budget. So, and I think it has to be after 6:30 PM. So maybe you want to set it for 6:30 on our June meeting and state the date.
Okay, let's ask the council, do we want to do this during the June regular meeting, or do you think we want our special public, hearing for to adopt the final budget on another day in June? That would be at 6:30 PM. Any feedback from the council on how you like to conduct this?
How much business do we anticipate having at the June meeting? In other words, do we have lots of space or do we expect there to be a lot of items? Because I don't know if GCD is going to come back. That's a big issue. And where I'm going with this is if it looks like we're going to have a lot, then I would suggest we do a special meeting. Otherwise, we'll be, until all hours of the evening.
All right, well, council members, pull out your calendars. We have to pick a date now. Okay, so not June 12th. Are you thinking you want to do this before the regular meeting? I mean, on a date before that or on a date after, knowing that we have the month of June?
Well, could we do it on a date afterwards? If we look like we have a light load for the June meeting, we include it, and if we don't, but we have a date that we have afterwards for sure on the budget. Is that possible, Polly?
You have
Can
to
you do that?
notice it at least 1 week prior,
Okay,
and it has to be publicly noticed. So you have to kind of settle on the date. So if you're going to do it on your next meeting, you would need to notice that at least 1 week prior. And I would suggest you adopting it if you're going to notice it for a public hearing, although conceivably it could be continued.
Okay, so I'm just gonna poll the council. I heard one bit of feedback about worrying about the regular business on June 12th beyond the adoption of our final budget. So I'm just gonna go around the room. Carol, you want to try to have this on the regular council meeting? Just we'll specifically call for it at a time on that day, or would you like to do it on another day in June, knowing that the council? Sometimes we have a second meeting and typically it'd be the 4th Thursday in June. I don't know what anybody's schedules are like.
I didn't bring my calendar, but I like that idea. Let's tentatively schedule it. The same.
On the
day.
same meeting as our regular business on June
Right.
12th, we'll just notice it for a specific time,
Right.
6:30 or later. Okay, Ralph, how you feel about that? Putting it on our regular June meeting, but at a specific time?
yeah, that's what I was lobbying for, and then if we don't, yeah, we'll have to get to it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say June 12th, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Do we have any indication whether or not GCD will be back on June? Because that'll be a big meeting.
We can notice this at a specific time. That would be 6:30 or later, and then if we could do business after that, other business after that, Jonathan.
Yeah, maybe can we notice it for a little earlier to give us more space so we don't end up, at midnight?
We can't notice it before 6:30 PM, Holly has just advised us.
All right, well,
6:30 PM or later, so we could go later for the budget. At a specific time, that would help time box the regular meeting, so think about that for a moment.
we don't want to risk kicking it for too long though, if we go long.
Exactly. Okay, let me ask Bob. Bob, I know you have a work schedule that is crazy at times, so June 12th.
Yeah,
Regular,
I should be home June 12th. Why don't we try to do it? And if we don't get to it, if it looks like it's going to be a marathon meeting, we'll kick it out next week or
Okay.
to a future time. Let's give it a try on June 12th.
okay, are you all okay noticing it for 6:30 PM on June 12th? This would be specifically the public hearing to adopt the final budget.
Sure.
Anybody opposed to that? Just Carol, you're good, 6:30? Hey, Bob, Jonathan,
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus.
Ralph?
Yep.
Okay, good. Oh, so I need a motion then to approve the tentative budget that you saw presented tonight for fiscal year 25-26, and to establish the time and place to adopt the final budget as June 12th, 2025, at 6:30 PM Mountain Time.
Also move.
Yeah,
Okay, Carol moved. Ralph, would you like to second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. You got that, Alicia? Okay, Bob,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Chris, yes. Carol,
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
All right, thanks, everyone. Motion carried. All right, now we're moving on to our final public hearing item. However, this item was pulled from the agenda by the applicant. And however, we had noticed it prior to GCD pulling it, Glenn pulling it. So we will have a public input on this tonight. And Polly, is that good? The way I just stated that, do you have anything to add?
Nope, that's right. We're gonna open the public hearing. If anyone wants to speak to it, they're welcome to, but no action's gonna happen, and the presentation and the discussion will happen at a later date.
Okay, thank you. Hope everyone understands that. And this is for Shoreline Phase 4, the subdivision. All right, with that, I'd like to open it to public input, and I'm gonna start with people in the room. Sorry again, if you're on the phone, you'll just have to wait. Anyone in the room like to give their public input on the final subdivision approval for Shoreline Phase 4? Okay, I saw a hand in the back first. Sorry. Now, if you could step up to the podium and state your name.
Sure. My name's Doug Silver. I live at 11419. There have been 71 emails you have all been copied on. The most recent one from Glenn was on October 15th. Every council member was CC'd on that. So that's over 6 months ago. This is directly related to the lift station and the completion of that work. It had been noted at some point that this could be part of the Phase 4 work, which would be alarming considering that in the amount of time for the lift station to be built, they've built an entire Hyatt. They've opened a ski area. We don't have a lift station that can be finished yet. So there's a finishing component, Phase 4. I don't know if this is your plan to wait for the completion of Phase 4, which would potentially be 4 years, 5 years to complete this project. But there is a road that is unfinished. There's constant traffic that picks up dirt. There's constant construction vehicles. And there is absolutely zero response from the council, from the former mayor, from the current one, anybody. And so no information is available. It would be great if there could be clarity about where this lift station project falls under and when it has a chance of being finished. So that would be great. And I would refer everybody back to the email that was on October 15th from Glenn. Again, everybody who is currently on the council is CC'd on that email, including the mayor and including community members. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Doug. Appreciate your input. All right, anyone else in the room? Glennis, step up to the podium, state your name, please, for the records.
Glennis Tahansky, Upside Drive, resident. I'm not here as a planning commission member. So I have three concerns, if I can remember all three of them. The first one being the fact that there was supposed to be single-family homes down at the bottom of the shoreline development. And now they're wanting to put 4, 5, 6 plexes down there. The concern I have is if you have single-family homes, you're gonna have fewer people that need to get out in an emergency. And if you have 4, 5, and 6 plexes, you're gonna have a lot of people who need to get out. And as it was before, those 4, 5, 6 plexes were up at the top of the hill with easier access out. So it doesn't make sense to me logically why the switch would occur. My second issue is with stormwater runoff. I don't think it's been planned for adequately in the past. And there currently is a detention basin that is filled with water where he would like to put a building. And I just can't see that ever happening. Because water obviously needs to go somewhere, and if it's not gonna go there, we're gonna end up dumping it into the state park where they've already had issues with our stormwater runoff. And my third, is, I don't know if I can really say this one, but I believe I remember from the approval of, from the planning commission's approval of, shoreline 3, that Glenn said at that time, someone asked him, are you putting in single family homes in phase 4? And he said, yes. So I will go back and look through those minutes to see if I can find it.
Okay, thank you, Glennis. Appreciate it. Anybody else in the room? Okay, one more in the room. Please state your name.
Peggy Polka, Rose Edge. I address this to council members. Council members are more than aware of our concerns of the new plan, poorly located community center, not in the center of the community, runoff, property devaluation with the high density. I think many of us as home buyers did our homework and went back and looked at what council had approved for his 2016 plan. It appears that he is, per whim, wanting to change that, a whim or revenue, whatever. And I would ask council to consider that you have guidelines and you have rules, and he's wanting to change things without abiding by any of those. And if you set a precedent in a community that you're wanting to build up, you're looking for huge failure. So I would ask you to go back and look at your rules and your guidelines and not allow the developer to change things per whim, but make him do it the proper way and go through what you have established.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, nobody else in the room? All right, now I'll go.
One more.
Oh, wait, I'm so sorry.
All right.
Please, go to the podium, state your name.
Julie Quick, Shoreline 2. I live on Sailwater Lane. There will be, I think, many more comments from our online residents as well, in opposition to the proposed plan for Shoreline Phase 4. And there's going to be a great articulation, I'm sure, of the kind of functional concerns, if you will, related to traffic, related to water runoff, related to density, related to property values. I actually don't want to get into all of those, but I do want to say that when we moved here 2 years ago, we were very conscious of the master plan for the city of Hideout. And it was a big decision for us and why we chose to live here. What I would say now, though, is that if everything is an exception, you don't have a rule. And I feel like since we've moved here, we've often seen every exception granted that developers ask for, some of them very substantial. And I'm really concerned about that. I'm also concerned just procedurally that did we really make a decision if we come back and revisit the topic again and again and again when the structural infrastructure needs and things like that haven't really changed? So I would just encourage us to stand by the analysis and decision that brought us to the decision around how that was going to be structured for single family homes and abide by that, not to impede progress. But I don't want to put the needs of one developer over the needs of the thousands of people in our community. And so I would ask the council to respectfully consider all of those factors.
All right, thank you so much for your input. All right, no more in the room. Okay, now we're gonna go on. I think I have two hands now. I'm gonna go with Tom Sly first. That's what it says. So if you would, identify yourself, tell us your name.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Tom Sly. I live on 765 Longview Drive. And first, I want to start by saying thank you for the members of the Hideout Council to provide this opportunity to speak. I do have kind of semi-prepared remarks just so I can try to keep concise and under the 3 minutes. So I want to express my deep concern and frankly shock at the audacity of GCD's request to more than triple the approved home density in phase four. When we purchased land and built our homes here, we did so based on a clear understanding of the planned density. This proposal undermines the understanding and the integrity of the planning process. Even more troubling is the lack of transparency. From what I understand, GCD is unwilling or perhaps unable to present a detailed plan specifying how many single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and other units they intend to build. They're asking for open-ended approval with no commitment to specifics. That's not how responsible development works. No reasonable person would approve such a vague and unbounded request. It is also my understanding that there are significant engineering challenges with this request. Let's simplify those challenges by simply saying no. Beyond that, increased density means increased fire risk, and we must think about where the water will come from for these homes. Will current homeowners have to begin rationing water to enable GCD's overzealous building and profit dreams to come true? With the announcement that Deer Valley purchased Mayflower to form East Village, a resort community that will at one point very nearly down the road become the main entrance to Deer Valley. It appears to me that GCD is looking to capitalize on this opportunity. As homeowners in Hideout, we know that increased density will only decrease our home values. Beyond the optics of looking out at a community where homes are packed together like sardines, we know scarcity creates value in real estate. Fewer homes, as we believed we were buying into when we moved to Hideout, will protect home values. From my point of view, living in Hideout now for 7+ years, GCD is nothing more than a greedy developer, and this once again proves it. GCD does not get it. They should be building a community, though from what I see, they are singularly interested in building nothing more than more homes. Over the years, we've seen them destroy or block our trails that allow our community to recreate. They have brought in thousands of truckloads of dirt and fill to raise the land below us in some areas more than 30 feet. I don't even think this is legal, though somehow our town has been able to stop or regulate this. When we looked at a shoreline townhome many years ago as a possible purchase, we were told a clubhouse and pool would be built after the completion in phase 2. Now I've heard that that'll be after phase 3 or 4, who knows? From my point of view, looking at GCD, they have not been a good neighbor or a good developer for our community. I'd like to ask Hideout and the council to protect our community, the residents, and our property values by denying this heinous request by GCD. And I thank you for this time today.
All right, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
You're here.
Okay, next I'm gonna recognize, thank you, Alicia. I can't see those numbers, so.
Oh, you can see it on the thing,
No, where's the thing?
on your Zoom thing?
No, we have numbers on our Zoom thing.
Oh, no, I just, you can see the clock. Anyway,
Okay, oh, that clock, okay. So yeah, we have a clock in the room, and I wanna compliment Tom on being very quick. So you made it under the time I was under. Okay. Sorry, with the next, I'm gonna recognize Brian Cooper. You have the floor.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for listening. I'd like to say Tom probably said things more eloquently than I did, so I just want to second his remarks to save time and make one suggestion. GCD keeps claiming that they can build 700 homes if they have permission to do that from the MDA. Okay, fine, in the total development. But they have never given a plan that goes more than one phase at a time. And as the current preliminary plan only allows 65 single-family homes, and they're changing that to 239 townhomes stacked 3 stories high. I just don't think that's viable at all. What I would like to see is a more consistent master plan that goes through all their phases and says, this is how we're going to distribute the rest of the 700 homes across this as a more average density rather than packing things in like sardines, like Tom said. And I think that would be a reasonable request of GCD. And lastly, they have not been working well with Gordon Miner, our town engineer, and that's got to be a strict requirement. They've got to abide by our construction codes. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. Great. And we have one other hand. Oops, sorry, 2 others, but I'm going to recognize the person that's only a phone number that ends in 025. You can unmute and then, yes, and please state your name.
Good evening. This is Dale Hman. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and appreciate you all hanging in there on this meeting tonight. As Brian Cooper just mentioned, Tom, I think you did a great job kind of summarizing for everybody our feelings. Carolyn Davis and myself live on Shoreline Drive. We were part of phase 1. And as Brian Cooper pointed out, originally it appeared that there was some cohesiveness to a master plan. But as this shoreline development has come about, we've all discovered there is no cohesiveness to it. The phase 1 properties, which were all twin homes, are all nicely spaced out. And then as we moved to phase 2, things got really cramped. And now phase 3, it appears they kind of went back to townhomes, which I think people who buy in that area will appreciate that. But in attending the planning meeting from last fall, and then recently the planning meeting for phase 4, there were no changes between the two, where from our perspective, what we're looking to have put in are apartment complexes. And I don't think that we want this side of the highway to look like Claim. And no disrespect to the developers that put Claim together, but allowing 4 and 5 and 6 plexes that are 3 stories high with rooftop balconies, because that's the only way that you will see anything is to be up on the 3rd story. Otherwise, you just look into the side of the building that's right next to you. As Brian Cooper mentioned, I would really like us to hold GCD accountable to a master plan of actually developing a community, not just determining where they want to stuff density. And as Brian pointed out, they're always eager to say, we're approved for 700. Well, let's use the 700 reasonably. I don't remember which caller it was or person in the room. Someone mentioned that phase 7, I think, which is up near Shoreline Drive and Recreation Drive, there was proposed high density up there. That actually may make sense in that area because of the way the terrain slopes and ease of access for in and out in case of emergency. There's Shoreline Drive and there's also Recreation Drive. So I guess my request is that we hold GCD accountable to becoming a good neighbor, not someone who just runs roughshod over the town and does whatever they want because they say, you know what, in 2016 we were approved for this many homes, so this is what we're going to do. And they continue to just throw that back into everyone's face. This is what we're going to do. So I may not be as eloquent as Tom Sly was, but I hope my message got across of we need to establish the type of town that we want Hideout to be and not just let developers rule. Thank you.
Evidently the gong went off. Dale. I had no idea it'd be that loud. It was right in front of me. It was like, what's going on? All right, Dale, thank you. We've got, we still have a few more hands. Dale, thank you. I'm gonna recognize, Catherine, Waltering. If you would, if we could unmute Catherine and, give Catherine the floor.
Hi, first I want to say thank you for allowing us to comment publicly tonight. I think it's an important part of the municipal process. I have attended every meeting involving Shoreline Phase 4, Planning Commission, and I have read through many, many minutes of prior phase approvals for GCD. I think at core, there is no clear articulation anywhere of what the standards are that Glenn has to meet, what the process is, and what rules, codes apply before the town council can make an educated and reasonable decision. Both town council and the community as a whole need to understand what rules, what codes, what standards apply. What happens when he wants to change a preliminary plan that was filed in 2016 and approved? If we look at phase 2 and 3, there was intense debate about his right to move a couple of units between 2 and 3. But now he says he can move 200 units and it's fine. So I would like to see town council step up and articulate for everyone what the rules of the game are when it comes to Shoreline. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Catherine. And we have one more hand, and it's Elise's iPhone. Can you please state your name? Okay, you have the floor.
Okay, my name is Elise Scher. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm not very good on these phones. I love what Tom said. Absolutely. My thoughts. My other big thing I really think we need to be considering is amenities here. I think we are falling behind some of our neighbors. Tuhey has a ton of amenities. We were driving around Sky Ranch. They have amenities. We are turning into it's going to look like an apartment complex and we have no amenities. We need to put in possibly something that gets us to the mountain, some sort of shuttle service. They have golf at multiple places. They have equestrian. What do we have for our town? In other words, why would someone want to come here to buy land or to buy our homes? I think that we are not going to maintain our value well because of what's been going in. And they're really, what do we have? 3 pickleball courts and 1 small dog park. We have nothing else really. And I'm very concerned that we're not putting in any amenities, no clubhouses. Nothing is, they say they're going to. We were supposed to have 18 holes when we bought our land. Now it's down to 9 and they're not well cared for. It was not a well developed. I shouldn't say they're not well cared for. It was not well developed from a golf standpoint. People don't want to come here to play golf. So that's really on top of what Tom said. I think we need to really be thinking about what we want Hideout to be and how we're going to position ourselves to maintain value, such as Tuhey and Sky Ranch and any of the other developments that are coming in. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Elise. Great, I don't see any more hands up. I'll give you all one final chance to raise a hand if you haven't yet. Okay, we have one more hand in the room. Can you step up to the podium and state your name, please?
My name is Sean Hicks. I live on North Coast Edge Drive. I would just like to remind everyone, I was at the Planning Commission meeting back in October where Glenn stood right here and said 239 units, but not everybody's going to be here at the same time. We cannot allow him to get away with that. We have to count on 239 units being occupied. our concern, and a lot of people, I think I speak for a lot of people in Shoreline Phase 2, we're concerned with evacuation and the traffic study, neither of which, to my knowledge, have been done, or none of us have seen that. You know, we have only certain ways to get out of the community, and if a fire comes from the side of Sky Ridge, where are we going? We can't go that way, we have one way out. It's a very big concern for us who live down in that area, that we need to know how that's gonna happen. And so whether it's a fire department or an evacuation study or a traffic study, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, that absolutely has to be done by GCD prior to any further movement or development down there. We're very concerned about that.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your comment. All right, one last call for public input. All right, I want to thank everyone who came up to the podium or contributed on the call tonight. All of your input is very, very valuable, and we really appreciate it. Okay, with that, I'm going to close public input. Now, for this item, I believe we have to make a motion to continue the final subdivision approval for Shoreline Phase 4 subdivision to a date uncertain, because we don't know yet when Glenn and GCD will bring it back. So that would be the motion for council.
So moved.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Second,
Who seconded?
that would be,
Oh, that was Bob. Sorry, Bob.
yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Bob. All right. All right, Carol.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Ralph.
Yes.
And Chris is a yes. All right, well, thanks everyone for bearing with us through our public hearings. We're going to move on now to our regular agenda items. And the next one is approval of adopting a resolution honoring Mayor Phil Rubin. Okay, so what I'd like to do is read this resolution and then ask the council for their approval. Whereas Phil Rubin served as mayor since January of 2018 and an advocate of a town led by the people for the people, continually focused on improving the lives of the residents. And whereas Phil Rubin has brought respect, honor, and integrity to the town of Hideout by leading by example, exhibiting the highest level of diligence and maintaining a high moral character. And we're going to pause for a moment. Oops. I'm going to get to the proper. Okay, thank you. I needed to have my whereases on the screen for everyone. Okay, and whereas Phil Rubin provided tireless service, tenacity, and grit, and a steady hand in his leadership position amidst many diverse and opposing viewpoints. And whereas Phil Rubin has volunteered numerous hours, incurred personal sacrifice, and exhibited outstanding personal character in his efforts to bring the community together. And whereas Phil Rubin's sense of determination and verve has enriched those fortunate enough to know and work with him. And whereas Phil Rubin was admired and respected by his staff as being kind, fair, a great mentor, and who was abundantly patient in approaching problems to understand the issues for continual improvement, and was willing to roll up his sleeves even to the point of snow plowing in the middle of the night when the budget was tight, which rhymes. And whereas Phil Rubin's unwavering commitment, willingness, and ability to stand up for what he believes has made a substantial contribution to the betterment of the town of Hideout and the residents in the region. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town council does hereby thank Phil Rubin for his dedication and outstanding public service. All right, so with that, I'll open it up to council. If you have any comments, any suggestions, additions, corrections, improvements, in the resolution? Or any other comments? So I'm gonna go around the room. I'll start with you, Carol. Anything you want to add?
Just thank you so much to Phil for everything he's done.
Thank you, Carol. Okay. All right, Bob, do you have anything?
I can't even put into words what a debt of gratitude we owe to Phil. And nicely written resolution. That's all I have.
Thank you, Bob. Ralph, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Geez, I've known Phil now since almost the day I got here 7 or 8 years ago, you know, so he's been a terrific gentleman and person and human being to work with. So I'd like to think that we could, beyond the resolution, do something. Maybe it's a Phil Rubin Day, or we could even maybe get a portrait of Phil and install it in town hall. So something that we might even commission a local artist and spend a few bucks on it and give him the credit he's justly due.
Thank you, Ralph. I have very creative ideas. I think Jan, maybe coordinating with the staff on things like that. Jan, would you be okay taking those kinds of suggestions?
Yes, sure.
Thank you so much. Okay, Jonathan, any words you'd like to say?
Boy, I think a lot of it's already been said. So I'll just say we owe him a debt of gratitude for all of his selfless time and effort. And I like the idea of a portrait in town hall. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't really have anything more to add. It's just sort of overwhelming. I don't think we can thank Phil enough for all his years of service, and we miss him. So, okay, with that, I would like the council member to make a motion to adopt the resolution honoring. I'd appreciate. I'm sorry. Let me finish this. The resolution honoring honorary resolution in appreciation for outstanding public service by Phil Rubin.
Also move.
Second.
Okay, so that's Ralph and Bob. Appreciate it. All right, Jonathan,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
and Chris is a yes. All right, thank you all.
Here.
Go on to the next item. Oh, okay. I just need to take, yes, so this has been a long agenda tonight. I don't know. It's only 8:30. It feels like it's midnight. Okay, so we're moving on to item number 2 is a legislative update. I'm going to say there are 2 things in the agenda items where we did not receive the packet materials in time to distribute to the council. So for item number 2, we're going to table that. Is that the right word? We're going to table that. Presumably we'll bring it back for the June meeting, but we're just going to table it tonight. All right, and then number 3. First of all, I want to thank Jan and Dallin Hackett for sticking around this long. So number 3 is consideration and possible approval of a resolution appointing Dallin Hackett, CPA, as Hideout Town Treasurer, and the effective date would be tomorrow. So with that, Jan, would you perhaps say a few words, and then we can open up questions for Dan.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to introduce Dallin Hackett. And Dallin, thank you for hanging on the line with us for so long. Dallin comes with 11 years of experience in municipal and several years of experience in the private sector, and really looking forward to utilizing his skills on special projects that we have. We're in a growth phase. We have projects, we're working engineering and JSSD on some projects with our annexation and there's some really good skills that Dallin brings that could decrease our reliance on our municipal advisor. And yeah, I'll let Dallin introduce himself as well.
Let's see. Is Dallin still, has he still hung in here with us? There he is. Dallin, I believe you're unmuted. Okay, we're not hearing anything. So I'm not sure if we will get to see Dallin or hear from Dallin. Dallin, can you hear us? Maybe have him type in the chat.
I'll text him. Maybe we could go on to the next agenda item and I'll.
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we
sorry
can.
about that. I switched from headphones to the computer speaker when my headphones die, and that's what happened. So my computer speaker wasn't working, or my computer mic.
Hey, Dallin, that's happened to us before, and I'm not surprised your battery died. This has been a long time for you to wait. So if you would, please just introduce yourself to us and tell us something about yourself.
Okay, sure. Anyway, it's good to meet all of you and to be part of your council meeting tonight. I appreciate your consideration for the treasurer. Like Jan mentioned, I have more than 11 years experience in municipal accounting and finance. Prior to that, I worked in the private sector for several years. So I feel like I have a good round, a good experience for the position. I reached out to Jan about the position. It was part-time. So it's something I can fit into my schedule, and I look forward to working with Hideout. It sounds like it'll be a beneficial opportunity for both of us. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Dallin. All right, any council members have any questions? I guess I'd like to start with Jonathan. Jonathan, do you have any questions about the treasurer position or Dallin?
Yeah, I have two questions. I saw his resume. We're extremely comfortable with that. I'm just kind of wondering, do we have an updated job description, or will the job description be the same as our previous treasurer?
Can you see my screen?
No, I'm sharing right now. Do you need to share your screen?
Okay.
Go ahead and take over the share.
We have asked Dallin to take over the current position or the current job description. And, as we work with him and have various projects, the finance committee will assign those. So yes, the same job description as the prior treasurer.
Okay, we might want to add and special projects as assigned. And then my second question is, what is the comp structure for this position?
We right now expect that we'll use Dallin 5 hours per week. And it's hourly, and we will see. It depends on what projects we have. Again, it will be projects assigned by the finance committee. So right now, we're expecting 5 hours a week.
Okay, and is that an hourly or is that a salary position?
Right now, it's hourly, yes.
And how much per hour?
75.
Okay. If we could put that in the job description, I think that would be a really good idea. But thank you.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Let me move on to Ralph. Any questions or comments about the appointment?
No, I haven't spent much time on on Dallin, your resume, but sounds like you've got a good background. I think you're a CPA, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks. And how much experience do you have with the towns? I'm sorry for asking a question that, may have already been in the packet, but I didn't exactly find it. But what's your, how many years on the municipal side?
It's 16. So I started in 2009
Thank you.
working for city
Appreciate
government.
that.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's some good experience. Okay. I'm good, Chris.
Okay, Bob, anything?
Nothing for me. Dallin, thanks for making yourself available.
All right, thank you, Bob. Carol?
No, fine, nothing.
Okay, thanks. And Chris, I had the pleasure of already speaking with Dallin, with Jan. So we did the preliminary meeting before this, and I'm very glad that Dallin is interested, willing, and able to join Hideout as our treasurer. Okay, so with that, I'd like I'd like to ask for a motion to approve a resolution appointing the treasurer for the town of Hideout, Utah.
I would make that motion with a proviso that we put in additional tasks as assigned and the compensation structure in the job description itself. So that would be my motion.
I'll second Jonathan's motion.
Okay. Bob?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Carol?
I question why we have to put in this compensation when it's no other staff members said that. I'm just curious.
Jonathan, you care to answer that since that was your stipulation?
Sure. I think it's a good practice so that we don't get into, we can always revise it later, but I think it's a good practice to make a job description very specific, in terms of, what the duties are. And I understand as, special projects as assigned, that it's 5 hours a week and that it's $75 an hour. I think the more specific we are, the better off we are in avoiding issues in the future.
Well, you have your answer and we have a motion
Right.
So.
I mean, I have no problem with him being the treasurer.
Okay.
So I will vote yes.
Thank you, Carol. And Chris is a yes. Did I get everybody? All right.
I'm a yes as well. I made the motion tonight. I'm a yes.
Yes, okay. Somebody keeping score. I got all 5 people. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, council. And welcome to Hideout. Dallin, sounds like you're gonna start work tomorrow.
Should
Good
we
luck.
have Alicia sign or swear him in right now?
Oh, that's not on the agenda. Yes. Alicia, are you prepared for this? Okay, so I'm gonna turn it over to Alicia, and Dallin, you should stay off mute because you're gonna be responding. Okay, so is Dallin ready to?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah. Sir, he's off mute.
Okay, Dallin, you'll raise your right hand for me. I can't see you, but I'm assuming you're gonna do this. Just repeat after me if you would please. I state your name.
I, Dallin Hackett,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Dalen. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Congrats.
don't go anywhere yet. The next one, we have, thank you, Alicia. We have consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the town treasurer, Dallin Hackett, access to the town's public treasurer's investment fund. That's the PTIP account. All right, let me get to that resolution. Give me a second here. Okay, so this is the public resolution. This is a standard form, isn't it? Okay. Council members, you have this in your packet. You basically just have to take a look at it. I'm not going to read this whole thing. Am I reading this whole thing? Okay, I am not reading this. And what I'm looking for is any discussion that you have. Any concerns you might have allowing our new town treasurer to access our PTIF account. Anybody have any concerns or anything they want to speak to about that? All right, I'm taking silence, meaning I should move on to okay, I'd like to ask the council for a motion to adopt a resolution. Oops, that's the wrong one. And I don't see the resolution here, but I'm going to ask the council to adopt the resolution authorizing town treasurer Dallin Hackett access to the town's public treasurer's investment fund PTIF account. I'll move. Okay, thank you, Carol.
Second.
Second. Go ahead.
Okay, Bob got it for second. All right, Ralph,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Carol, yes. Chris is a yes. All right, thank you. Motion carried. All right, number 5, we have a discussion and consideration of the mayor to remove alternate planning commission member Peter Ginsburg with advice and consideration of the council. Okay, so back while Phil was still mayor, Phil took the action of thanking Peter Ginsburg for his service as alternate planning commission member and relieved him of his position. That actually happened already, and that was in March prior to this council meeting. So he was already thanked and removed. And what we'd like to do is just circle back with the council to give their advice and consent of an action that was already taken.
Yeah, and actually, let me jump in. It's actually the council's responsibility or authority to remove a planning commissioner. So this would technically actually remove him. I think he had missed a couple of quite a few meetings, and so it was. I think former Mayor Rubin thought it was appropriate to find someone else.
Thank you, Polly. Appreciate the help. So what we're looking to do is to complete the planning commission and make sure we've got all members who are able to regularly attend the meetings. And we're asking the council to formally remove Peter Ginsburg from the planning commission before his term is over.
I would be opposed to that. I know him personally. He's a very smart man and an asset to the town. And I would remind everybody that as committee members on this town, none of us are compensated. And I would be opposed to his removal.
Okay. So, Bob, I think the reasons, and I think the reasons were inability to attend the meetings and lots of absences. I think, how do we want to conduct ourselves as a council, and then how do we want the planning commission to be able to conduct themselves? And I think we can generally agree that folks who are giving their time to service in service of Hideout, we do need a certain level of participation. So I just want to say that the reason for his removal that I saw was excessive absences and an inability to commit to attending the meetings. So Bob, thank you for your comments. Anyone else have any comments before I ask? And Polly, what kind of action would this be then? Because it's not how it's worded here. It's allowing the mayor to remove the alternate planning commission member. It doesn't say, this is advice and consent to the council. It doesn't say the council removes it.
And I apologize. I didn't see it till this evening. I didn't look specifically at the language. Excuse me for that. But I was looking it up in the code just to make sure that it complied. And what our code says is that the council may remove a planning commissioner with or without cause. So it would just be a motion by the council to remove.
So are you saying that the mayor didn't have the authority to remove him?
Yeah, it looks like the way that our code reads, and let me pull it up, is that it's the council who is the one that would that removes a planning commissioner.
Yeah, I'm not voting for that.
All right, thanks, Bob. We're aware of that.
All right.
Well, what is, can I ask a question here? I've talked to Peter before. What is his view and what is, I'd also would like to hear some comments from, our planning commissioner, of course, but, any input on that, on either one of them?
Tony, I can read you that. It's an email. Let me find it. So Tony, as you know, is the chair of the planning commission, and it was at his request and in coordination with Phil. And again, I wasn't involved in it at the time, but Tony was the one who contacted me. He sent me a note. He said, as previously discussed with Mayor Rubin, and by the way, I got this on 4/19, so I got this right after Phil resigned. As previously discussed with Mayor Rubin, Peter has missed 7 of the last 14 planning commission meetings and does not appear to be prepared when attending. As I have previously asked Mayor Rubin, I would respectfully request that Peter be removed from the planning commission and another alternate be appointed. So we do have input from the planning commission chair that is from the 19th of April.
Chris, that email came from Tony?
It came to me directly from Tony, yes. And that was while I'm serving as mayor pro tem after Phil resigned.
And have we gotten anything from Peter? I mean, has he been notified that he, that he could attend and provide some other commentary to Bob's point?
He was notified on March 18th, so a full month before Tony sent me this. He was notified by Phil of his excessive absences. And I don't know if he replied or not. I wasn't involved. What I'm trying to say is we have a planning commission member who, prior mayor and the current chairman of the planning commission would like to thank for their service, but also remove them. And in the meantime, I actually have lined up a replacement who is here waiting to find out if he can be appointed. So I think we need to take some kind of action tonight. And I have met Peter also. He seems like a very intelligent, very good person. So there's nothing there. I don't have anything negative to say about him. All I have in front of me is the evidence that I just explained to you about the prior discussions between the former mayor and the chair of the planning commission.
I have a question. Is the alternate required to attend all planning commission meetings?
Yes.
So that person attends but doesn't participate in voting if the regular planning commission is there.
Correct. That's right.
So he didn't attend
he didn't attend 7 of the last 14. So that's half. in the last more than a year. Okay.
Was
that's-
was Peter given any kind of notice or heads up that we were going to take this action tonight? Because I'm a little queasy about taking this action without him having some form of notice and an opportunity to speak up on his own behalf.
So, yeah, as a council member, that's your, if that's how you want to conduct, if that's how you want the planning commission to function, where we have a member who isn't attending, if that's how you want to run the planning commission to run, I guess that's your prerogative. It's not how I would want to run a planning commission, considering all of the consequential proposals that come in before them and all of the work. And yes, I realize they're unpaid, we're unpaid, and we're doing this because we care. And I have no doubt that Peter cares. It's just, we need to have a full staffed planning commission because of the difficult projects they have in front of them.
Chris, I don't disagree with you for 1 second. I'm leaning the way you are, but I guess this is a question for Polly. Is Peter entitled to any kind of notice or opportunity to be heard with respect to this? In other words, I don't want to be violating, if he has,
I'm
rights.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Polly.
Sorry, I was talking, but I was muted. So I apologize. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, the code doesn't provide that. I do know that, so I think he was aware that the mayor was going to recommend this action. I think I heard that Tony is trying to get on this in case you want, since he was more involved with it directly.
Right.
While we're waiting, I'll make a comment because I was for quite a few years a member of the Park City Planning Commission and briefly a member of Hideout's Planning Commission before I became a counselor. And I think it's critical that you attend the meetings. It's a very important job and you have all kinds of information given to you. So if you don't attend, and apparently it sounds like he didn't contact anybody and asked to be excused. It sounds like he just didn't take the position very seriously. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, I'll make a comment on that because I also spent a lot of time on the planning commission here, as well as a couple of other towns. Yeah, without consistency and being prepared for any of these positions, it leaves, it leaves the other folks in a position that they don't have all the proper information and the proper intent to vote on certain things. So that concerns me a lot. I'm going to have to, and I know, Bob and I travel a lot. I've made plenty of meetings remotely. So, but I would love to hear what Peter's input, and that's why I'm surprised. I would hope he got a chance to at least defend himself, or at least say, "Hey, listen, these are my issues. I'd still like to participate," or it's based upon his schedule, he just can't. So that's the sad part of being in this situation. I would rely on having been, vice chairman of 2 towns planning commissions. Got to rely on your planning, your planning commissioner as well. In this case, Tony, to provide guidance on why he feels that there's not enough input from this individual. So, be honest with you, I would probably lean more into what Tony's saying at this point, based upon his running those meetings. However, I would love to have Peter a chance to at least say, "Hey, I'm gonna, you know, I can be part of the meetings in the future. This is my issues, or you know, this is the problem with why I missed 7 out of 14, which is a lot.
All right, Ralph, thank you. So I've been told Tony is now on the line. Tony, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All
I'm
right,
here.
Tony, thank you. So I really
Hello.
appreciate. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, so Tony, I don't know how long you've been on. I just want to let you know what's happened. So we've gotten to the item on the agenda where we have discussion and consideration of the mayor to remove the alternate planning commission member, Peter Ginsburg, with advice and consideration of the council. Polly has since clarified that it is not the mayor that removes an alternate planning commission member, but it is the council that is in our code that removes the alternate planning commission member. So there's been some discussion about, first of all, Bob pushed back because he thinks, because of his, opinion of Peter being, a good, intelligent guy. Bob said it better than that, but, and then we've got some pushback, from, Jonathan and Ralph. Sorry if I'm getting you guys mixed up, but, they asked, did anybody talk to Peter? What I did, Tony, is I did read out loud the memo you sent to me on the 19th, which said, as you had previously discussed with Mayor Rubin, that Peter had missed 7 out of the last 14 meetings. So as being a reason for requesting his removal. So with that, Carol also mentioned that she has served on the planning commission and said, in her opinion, it's critically important that all planning commissioners, including alternates, attend every possible meeting because of all the consequences of the recommendations that they make. So with that, I think we would like to hear what you have to say about this this situation and try to help give a little bit more information to the council who has to make this decision.
Well, all I can tell you is basically meetings he did attend, he seemed to be ill prepared. He would ask questions that were covered in Thomas's report if he decided to look through them prior to the meeting. Meetings that he missed and then attended where we did follow-up work on certain projects that were continued, he would be asking questions and trying to cover stuff that was actually agreed upon and covered in the previous meeting. And if he had read the presentations, he would know that. And that's basically out of the 7 he missed. I believe I was notified once by him that he wouldn't attend. I don't know if he notified Alicia on some of them. That might be the case on one that I remember, but the rest, it was just basically no call, no show.
All right, thank you, Tony. All right, council members, anybody have any questions for Tony?
Tony, is it your understanding that Peter was aware that this action was going to be taken by the council, or was he not aware?
I have no idea. I told my concerns to the mayor because I was under the impression the mayor would have to remove him. That's how it was explained to me. So I brought it up with the mayor. I was under the impression by the tone of the email that Mayor Rubin sent to him that he had some discussion about it. But even after this was initiated, I never heard from Peter. So I can't speak for him. I know I did not notify him.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I did previously say that I have an email from Phil who did notify Peter. That happened in March. So there was a formal notification from the mayor, whether or not that was proper procedure, I don't know, but it happened. On
Chris,
March,
could you please be so kind as to read that email?
I will. Okay, March 18th, Tuesday. It went to Peter, copied Tony, subject planning commission. It says, Peter, roles on the planning commission are appointed by the mayor. The planning commission is a critical part of the development process in Hideout, and all members and alternates must be present to ensure that the process is holistic. After further consideration, post our discussion, I have made the decision to relieve you of your role. He goes on to say, I appreciate your efforts to date and hope that you will consider once again becoming involved with the town activities when your schedule permits. And that was thanks, Phil Rubin, Mayor, Hideout, and Tuesday, March 18th, 2025.
Any response to that?
I have no idea. I don't have access to Phil's emails.
Understood. Thank you for reading that.
All right, so with that, I need a motion. I think, do I need a motion? Someone to make a motion. To, I guess, allow, help me with this, Polly, to allow the mayor to remove the alternate planning commission member, Peter Ginsburg.
So it would be to remove him from the planning commission, would be a motion.
Okay, that would be the motion to remove Peter Ginsburg from the planning commission. I'll move. All right, thank you, Carol. Is there a second?
So if I can just, point of order, I guess.
Yes, go ahead.
Just because you do vote on a motion, or just because you bring a motion to the table in a second, that just brings it to it so you can vote on it. It doesn't mean that you agree with it.
Thank you, Alicia.
Would you repeat that? Say that again, Alicia?
Sure. So when you bring a motion to the table and second it, that just means that you're bringing it to vote. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you actually agree with the motion.
Right, yeah, okay.
Seconded and vote against it.
Yes.
Yes. But we're looking for a second so that we can have a vote. All right, I'll second. I forgot for a moment that I was a council member. Okay, I'm seconding. All right, so now I'm going to poll the council. I'm gonna go with Bob.
No.
Carol.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. Ralph.
I'm going to say no, only because we haven't heard from Peter, and I would like to give him a chance to step forward. But this is a tough one because Tony rules the roost, and he knows his situation. And so I just like to get one more chance to get Peter to say to voice his view before we make a final determination on that. We can hold. I would suggest holding that off until next month.
So you're a no.
So I'm a no right now for 30
Okay,
days.
John.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with this one. If Peter were here and gave an explanation, I would have no problem voting yes. But because I'm a little queasy about, him, whether or not he knows and has an opportunity to speak to us, because I'm a little queasy on that. And while I respect immensely Tony's opinions, I just have this one little problem, and I'd like to bring it back next month after we give Peter the opportunity to speak. So at the moment, I'm a no, but I would easily become a yes if he were here.
So that's a no.
It is a no.
Okay. Chris is a yes. All right, so,
I guess we can't talk anymore. Okay.
all right. All right, so in that case, then we're going to skip.
Oh, Madam Mayor, if I may say something before I get off the line.
Oh, please do, Tony. You should have the last word here. I would
With
appreciate
all
that.
due respect to the council members, we're in May now. He received the email in March. He did not reach out to anyone on the planning commission. If he had reached out to the mayor prior to the mayor's resignation, I would have gotten an email from Phil in regard to it. So I don't understand your position. And being that you have taken the position that you have, I have to seriously consider my position on the planning commission, because you're asking me to run it without a full complement of people. And people, even if they are there, are not prepared. Blatantly not prepared, I should say. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. All right, so council members, I just want you to know that your votes are consequential here. You'll remember that in the last meeting, we had a very difficult decision whereby we adopted a piece of legislation that then resulted in the resignation of our mayor. Now, we are in danger of having something similar happen to the head of our planning commission. So I just want you to remember that your votes carry consequence. All right, moving on.
Can I say one more thing?
No, hold on, Ralph. I don't know what you would want to say that would make this better.
Well, I'd like to give, I'm certainly behind Tony, having been in the same position. You know, what I don't know for sure, and maybe he just answered that, were there lost emails in here? You know, because Phil resigned, maybe he didn't get the email, maybe he didn't get the information. So that's the piece that I thought the gentleman could at least respond
You
to.
have your say already, Ralph. We're moving on. We don't know the status. We gave you the status. We don't know what's in Phil's email box. We do not know his conversations. And so you guys have had your vote. So now we're moving on to the next item. And I want to sincerely apologize to Brad Ermet, who has been toughing out this entire council meeting to get his chance to be appointed as an alternate. So Brad, sincere apologies. This may not be over yet. I don't know if you're still willing to serve on the planning commission after hearing this. If you're saying sure, I'm relieved and delighted. I think we have to skip 6. We're just tabling or whatever we're doing with 6. Brad, thank you so much for toughing this out. Okay, number 7 is consideration to approve an ordinance to amend Hideout Municipal Code, blah, 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 to meet the intent of an ordinance in the past. This is also tabled because we did not receive the materials in time for the council, so we won't be considering that one. And then, now we're gonna get to the last discussion agenda item. And that is number 8, discussion and approval of how the council should conduct the special meeting of May 12th, 2025. So for anybody listening who isn't aware of this, this is the meeting that is called on Monday, May 12th at 6 p.m. for the council to make a selection to appoint a replacement for to fill the mayor's existing term because due to Phil Rubin's resignation. So on Monday, May 12th at 6 p.m., the council will meet in a special meeting. This is a discussion on how the council would like to conduct itself. And before we start that, I'd like to ask Alicia, how many applicants do we have for that position?
We have 2 who have formally submitted their names, which would be Chris Fire and Ralph Severini, both council members. Or council members.
All right, thank you, Alicia. So, you know, with 2 council members, I think, Polly, we need you to, give us a little bit of advice. I think there's a state law that prohibits, council members from voting for themselves. So if you could just, perhaps give us a recap of some of the considerations in this meeting, and then I want to open it up to the council to, decide how we would like to conduct ourselves in that meeting. So Polly, would you, help us a little bit first?
Yeah, so you're correct. If a council member puts in for an appointment, interim appointment or appointment of a vacant seat, they cannot vote for the position. I do have, you know, we've been kind of thinking about it. I kind of have 3 questions in terms of the process for the council to work through. One would be, especially since the mayor pro tem here is one of the candidates, the question is who would conduct the meeting. I sent you all an older rules of procedure that had an ordinance that was in our prior code that didn't get updated in 2020 that suggested, that required that if the mayor and the mayor pro tem wasn't available, then it would be the next longest running or longest council member who's been on the council. So that's one idea, but it's ultimately up to the council to decide. 2, I think you want to think about how will questions be asked. There is a requirement that there's interviews and that the interviews happen in the open meeting. And there was a question of whether or not to do time limits on the interviews. So again, this will be the council's chance to ask questions and get information about the candidates and how you want to conduct yourselves.
Who would be if you, after Ralph and Chris, who's the next most senior person? Would that be Carol? And if
It's
so,
Carol.
so Carol, are you willing and able to run such a meeting? Because that sounds to me like a good idea. The most senior person.
I could do it. I want to know if I run the meeting, if I can still speak or ask questions of the candidates.
Absolutely. Yes. You would still be an active council member, just like Mayor Pro Tem still acts as a council member, so would you. It's just that we need to have someone run the meeting.
All right, I will run the meeting. Do I need to get a briefing as to how to run the meeting?
I'm happy to talk with you and just kind of help you, you know, how to do it if you have any questions.
Okay, when could we do that?
At your convenience. I'm available tomorrow, Monday, over the weekend, I'm around.
Okay, I have a really full schedule this weekend, but I could do it Monday. I could do it Monday afternoon. All right.
Okay. Yep. Why don't you and I communicate and we can find a time.
Just
Okay.
bear in mind, we called do we have an executive session already?
Yes, we
Okay,
do.
so we have a 5 PM executive session that will be noticed if it hasn't been noticed already. Right, and so you would run the 6 o'clock meeting.
And you would
I'm
run.
gonna run the executive session, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So that's really, you're just running the meeting.
Right.
And the meeting itself would be the selection, you know, the interviewing and the selection. And then it would be the swearing in, right, Alicia? Alicia, the mayor, would be sworn in immediately,
Yes.
right? Mhm. And that would be the agenda.
Okay.
Holly, do we need to formally move and vote on appointing Carol to run this?
Sure. And you can just do it as a voice. You don't have to do it individually. You can just all say aye or nay.
All right, well, I would move that Carol, being the senior most member of the council who's not running, I would move that she be appointed, or whatever the appropriate adjective is, to get her and allow her to run that meeting.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Carol, you get to vote first.
Do I get to vote for myself?
You get to vote.
Yes, you can vote for yourself there, and you can just do roll. You don't have to do a roll call.
I could, but I'm gonna do individuals. Carol?
Okay.
Yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
And Chris is a yes. Okay, so that's settled. Right, great. No more discussion on that, right? We're set then?
Are we gonna discuss time limits or anything like that?
Oh.
Okay.
Time
Kind of the
limits, considerations. Go ahead, Polly.
Well, so I had, you want to, I don't know if you want to articulate now or if you just want to leave it up to Carol to kind of conduct it, but how questions will be asked, or just to have a time limit. Do you want to?
Polly, I kind of suggested when I was talking to Cameron and looking at what Midvale fell into, that the trap of the coin flip, which is based upon state law, believe it or not. And then we were talking about, well, they had about 10 candidates and they put 2-minute time limits on candidates. I'm not proposing that, but I would say we should probably put like a 15-minute time limit. It's like going on. I don't see the necessity in that. I mean, it's just if this council doesn't know who the two of us are at this point, I'm not quite sure they've been attending the meeting. So, it's not like we're unknowns here. So just to keep it efficient, I'm proposing that we keep it to like 15 minutes a candidate.
Are members of the public, if they attend, they can't speak?
No public.
They can attend, but they can't speak.
Right, okay.
That's correct. Yes, and the interview process has to happen in public, and the deliberations or the votes all have to happen in public.
And the only council members who will be voting are Carol, Bob, and John.
Correct.
Look, I don't know why we need, and I'm still council member, so I'm gonna speak up. I don't know why we need a limit. Ralph, like you said, if they don't know us already, they're just avatars sitting here, but, I mean, I don't have a specific objection to a 15-minute limit, Ralph. I don't really care, about that. I don't want the meeting to drag on forever. It may be a difficult decision or it might be an easy decision. It's really hard to know. So, I don't know what other council members feel. Would you want to be limited to 15 minutes? The clock, Alicia starts the clock and then it's over. No more questions, no more ability to compare and contrast. If you have that desire, so I'm just curious what other council members think.
Well, it's a proposal based upon, what I've seen, what I've looked at, what other towns are doing. So, to me, it makes some sense, especially given the fact that we're known commodities as opposed to unknown. But certainly, if you want it to go longer, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm just suggesting we make it efficient.
I don't see how putting a time limit helps. Unless you think that the council is not going to be able to get to a vote for some reason.
No, I think, there's time limits on these things for filibustering reasons. So not to say that we would do that, Chris, but so those are my thoughts. I would love to hear other thoughts if you want to extend it, and not have any time limits. I guess I'm okay with that too.
Well, I think we just gave Carol the authority to run the meeting, so I think we should let Carol, weigh in here.
Well, we have a meeting prior to this meeting. So that's an hour because this meeting is noticed for 6, correct?
Right.
So I would say, yeah, 15-minute time limit seems reasonable.
Is that how you'd like to do it?
Right. I mean, I don't really, I would just say, don't go over 15 minutes. You know, like you're gonna.
Is that 15 minutes total, all questions, or is it me telling you about my qualifications
that's
and
a
Ralph
good-
telling
that's
him
a
about
good
it,
point.
and then you getting to ask, is it a
Right.
total 15 minutes for
That's
the
a good
candidate?
point. It's a very good point.
Well, you want to have 5-minute intros and 15 minutes of questions? I mean, you know, something like that, that's fine.
In 15 minutes ago, I didn't know I was going to be running this meeting. I have to think about it.
I'm just trying to draw some parameters around this. And again, if everyone else feels, hey, you know, just go for it, so to speak, and have no limitations, that's fine.
I would think, I'm inclined to say, let's do a 5-minute monologue, intro, qualifications, and then, no more than 10 minutes per council member asking questions and getting answers, something like that.
Well, I think we should just, I don't know why we'd have any limits personally. I mean, you may have questions, you may not, you can't predict what's gonna happen. I
So-
certainly can't predict what's gonna happen on Monday.
So the people that are running for the position, they can ask questions of the other candidate. Is that
No.
correct?
No,
No.
no. I'll double check that over the weekend, but they're definitely not allowed to vote. And it seems like it could be, it wouldn't make sense to have them participate either. So I'll double check.
I didn't read it that way. I thought we were not allowed to vote for ourselves. Like if I, during that meeting, decide, I don't want this, I'm just gonna vote for Ralph, and then Ralph wins. So I think I can vote. I can vote for Ralph.
You just can't vote for yourself. That's the way Cameron
That's the way
described it to
Cameron
me.
presented it to us. So we are fully functioning council members, able to ask questions. We just simply cannot vote for ourselves.
That is correct. So I guess the question is do the candidates want to voluntarily agree not to ask the other candidate questions, or do they want to participate? I don't think that you'll have much issues of filibustering or game playing if the two candidates aren't asking the other candidate questions. But I do know that the law just says you can't vote for yourself. I'm not sure what other
I
place.
would like to be able to ask questions to Ralph. I mean,
Right.
I don't know everything about Ralph. And I think it'd be unfair if I couldn't participate as a council member and ask, the few questions I might have after I hear, what he has to say. And I would expect, and I would invite Ralph to ask me any questions he has. As I would for any of the other council members. So I would not be willing to give up my right to participate as a council member in the interview process.
I was just trying to create some time limits around here. And so anybody can ask questions. That's fine with me as well.
Okay, did that settle then? Right, we can all participate. Yep, but just I can't vote for me and Ralph can't vote for Ralph. Okay.
Are we?
And have we settled on the time limits?
Yeah. I'd like to see. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carol.
And we can, each council member can ask each candidate, correct? So if it's 10 minutes per council member, that would be
An hour.
an hour.
Keep it under an hour.
Right. All right, so let's do that.
All right, so our time limit is
10 minutes.
10 minutes total. Alicia has the clock.
Right.
Of
of each council member asking each one of the two.
Total. Is that what you're saying? 10 minutes total? Like you could ask me and Ralph a total of 10 minutes of questions. You can ask Ralph 8 minutes of the questions and me 2 minutes of the questions, but you have 10 minutes? Is that what you're proposing?
I don't know if that's enough.
Right, exactly.
just
Why
trying
do we
to
have any
think.
limits?
Right.
Haven't heard from Bob. Bob, any thoughts? Bob, you're muted.
But I don't want this to go on all night.
Yeah, I mean, there's an election in the fall for, longer, discussions, so.
It
Whatever.
won't go. Right. Like if I want to end it, I vote for Ralph. And it's over. And that's what
I agree with Carol. I don't want it to go on all night either.
Right.
So some reasonable, cap on questions. I think 10 is good. Maybe go around the table and ask people what they think. If they like 10 minutes, great. If they don't, propose a different number.
Right, so I'll throw out, that each council member gets 10 minutes to ask either candidate questions.
10 minutes total.
10 minutes total.
I'm
And you
good with
can-
that.
You can divide it up however you want.
I like that. I'm good with that.
Okay.
And if everybody takes 10 minutes, it's over in an hour. Right. Okay.
Can I ask?
All right, so this whole thing's gonna be what, 1 hour total? Is that our time limit?
Well, according to what Carol just suggested, every council member has up to 10 minutes to ask questions to either candidate. And we'll time it, if we need, we'll time it just to be official. And, therefore you go around 5 people, 10 minutes, that's 50 minutes, Bob. So, we should be done in an hour.
Well, then we vote.
Right, then you go to a vote.
Then I call for the vote.
Then you go to
correct?
the vote. Yes.
My only concern is this turning into a political debate when you, Chris and Ralph are, for lack of a better word, cross-examining each other. If you guys want to do that, that's fine with me. I don't think it's necessary, and I think we all know each other pretty well. So I would be in favor of not doing anything to extend this meeting longer than it needs to be. Just my opinion.
Well, we're setting time limits, Bob. Is that adequate for you? We're setting time limits.
10 minutes is fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just a clarifying
Go ahead,
question.
Alicia.
Jonathan proposed a 5-minute intro. So 10 minutes plus the 5 minutes?
That's right.
Well, that adds up to 60 minutes. Right.
Right. Okay, that's perfect. Each candidate gets 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we each have 10 minutes to ask questions. Okay, that takes it to 1 hour.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, discussion and approval of how the council should conduct the special meeting of May 12th, 2025. Okay, so I'd like a motion to approve how the council will conduct themselves on the special meeting of May 12th, 2025, as discussed, whereby the candidates each have 5 minutes to do a presentation on themselves. Council members have up to 10 minutes to ask questions. Each have questions, and then we go to a vote. Okay, I'd like a motion, that motion, if somebody would make it.
I'll move.
Seconded.
Okay, Jonathan was the second?
Yes.
All right, Ralph? Ralph?
Yes. Yep.
Chris? Yes. Bob?
No, I don't think you guys should be interviewing with each other. That opens up a whole Pandora's box.
That wasn't part of the motion.
All right, well, no.
Jonathan? Wait, to read it, Jonathan. Jonathan?
Yes,
Carol?
I just want a cap. That's all.
Okay, sorry, Bob.
Did you vote for yourself?
I voted yes. If I haven't voted, I voted yes. So Bob voted no. He still has concerns over the council members. I don't know. Cross-examining.
This has the potential to turn into political theater. I'm not saying it will, but I can see it going sideways.
Agreed.
We only have 10 minutes of it going sideways, so it won't be that long, Bob.
Yeah, I can hang it out for 10 minutes, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay, well, Alicia's gonna keep us on task and there'll be a big gong in here.
Can we have the gong for every meeting?
Really?
Great idea.
Okay, great. So that passed 4-1. Okay, now we're moving on to the committee updates, which I would love to table until next month, but we're not going to. I'm going to ask each committee member to please give a nice succinct update. And they're listed in this particular order. Is this our customary order?
I kind of just put wildfire committee on there,
On the
but
top.
the rest of them are customary.
Okay, since they're in the order listed here, I'm gonna start with wildfire committee. So, Jonathan, if you would, please update the council on the activities your committee has been doing.
Sure. As for the permanent fire station piece, so far as I'm aware, we're still waiting for UDOT to give us approval. Thomas, if you have any further update on that, I would love to hear from that. And then on the wildfire mitigation fork, I leave that to Ralph because he's spearheading that effort.
I would just add that we have now a firm date in July for our symposium, which is centered around our insurance commissioner, John Pike. And we're building an agenda around that for 6 hours in July 15th at Black Rock Mountain Resort. So a lot more to come in the next month.
And this is Thomas, and I'll say that we are coordinating with UDOT. We heard from them this week, and so we're trying to coordinate that meeting. So Jonathan, it is forthcoming, hopefully in the next week or two.
The approval or the meeting?
The meeting.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
And who is going to be able to attend that meeting?
The UDOT meeting will be between the town representatives, but it's really between UDOT and the Wasatch Fire Department to figure out the final access point for the potential Wasatch Fire Department location on SR 248.
But if you said it's a 6-hour symposium, is it just for council? Who is it for?
Oh no, this one isn't a 6-hour symposium, just to be clear. This is just a meeting between UDOT and the Wasatch Fire Department. We'll be participating with them, and this is regarding access. Jonathan, did you have another meeting that you were asking about?
No, Ralph was going to give the piece. Ralph has a separate meeting set up for July 15th. Ralph, you want to jump in and explain the difference between the two?
Yeah, the July 15th meeting is a symposium of different people talking in a panel orientated format across about 6 hours with a kind of an anchor speaker being our state insurance commissioner, John Pike. And we're inviting the governor, we're inviting representatives from Mike Kennedy's congressman, and we'll also invite community members from our surrounding communities. So it's and fire departments. We will share in educational at a high level activities and how we can work together as towns and groups and various organizations with inside the state. The state just passed a House Bill 48, which says all insurance underwriters must now use the Department of Forestry's um, analytics and risk scoring data for underwriting property insurance. So that will be a discussion. And again, the governor just passed that 2 weeks ago. So that's one reason why we'd invite him. But these will all be pieces of the agenda. And I'll be glad to share that as soon as we kind of get closer to finalizing it. So that's that. Sorry?
This will
Question
be
there?
open to the public, correct?
No. Well, it will be invitees only. We'll have a public meeting in about a month after that, Carol. We wouldn't have room for the public at this point. We have, we'll have enough for maybe 50 people. And, this is kind of a higher level group. So,
Ralph,
and then
who's
we'll do-
organizing the symposium? Who's sponsoring it?
We have, well, we would be a sponsor. We've already got a commitment from another sponsor, one of the spatial analytics companies. Are going to, pay for part of our lunch, so to speak. And we'll have the fire department sponsor it, the towns. And then, of course, the speakers will attend.
Let me just ask you directly. Are you organizing this yourself, Ralph?
Well, I'm organizing it with a lot of help from Jonathan's on some of the meetings. We have Helen, who's participated in some of the calls, and Jan's participated in some of the calls as well.
So this is an official town event. Hideout is organizing a symposium.
It is, we're one of the sponsors. So it would also be sponsored by the Wasatch Fire Department and some of these other entities, including, having a state insurance commissioner come. Yeah.
So it's your committee then who's organizing? I'm just trying to understand because the mayor's not organizing this because the mayor is me right now and I don't know anything about it. So is this coming from your committee then, Ralph, or you personally, Ralph, or is it through?
Oh, it's coming from the committee. Yeah.
And
So
who
on
can
the commit, sorry, go ahead.
Carol just wants to know who can attend it. If it's a symposium with up to 50 people, is there an audience?
Well, the audience would be some of the surrounding communities, people that we invite. Yeah.
Well, I think you need to invite Carol. In case the message wasn't there, but she's not getting.
Carol, you're invited. Yeah, absolutely.
Council, probably
Sorry?
planning commission. I mean, if you're doing
We're
this
spending money on
partly
this
for Hideout.
So.
Well, we're trying to limit how much money we spend, but if we put money into this, then all the Hideout people would come. Yeah.
All right, Ralph, do you happen to know which budget line, which GL account this money is coming from? I can ask that afterwards, but we have to talk to the finance committee. I just don't know where. I don't know if it's in the budget or we budgeted for it. I just want to make sure that this is part of what the budget discussion that we had already, because I don't know, if we hear symposium, it sounds expensive.
Well, from what I gather, we have a retainer at BlackRock, and that's a piece of what we could use. So it's already been paid down. So I think it was past money. So if we use any of our money, it would be associated with BlackRock, and we have a retainer there. So
we have, all right. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to draw a conclusion on this wildfire committee. It has gone, way beyond the quick update that I was looking for. Carol, I'm sorry, I can't answer your questions. I don't fully understand it either. All right. And
well, listen, why don't I do this? Since one of us is going to be mayor next month, or in a few days, then I'll have a better report on this in the next meeting. How's that, Chris? Does that satisfy you?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, remember, this is the first wildfire committee official agenda report, and we were always been looking, we want to know what the committees are doing. And kind of getting that information from you, but we really appreciate if you could.
Yeah,
Next
well, the
meeting,
town will,
more precisely and be prepared for the kinds of questions you might get from the council. Okay, moving on to the planning commission.
well, wait,
Moving
hold on there. Does anyone else have any questions of, what we're trying to accomplish here? And I can put up an agenda. You wanted short and sweet, so I thought that was the approach.
Okay, moving on to the next one, Ralph, I'm just gonna move on. Planning Commission, Thomas, do you have anything, any updates for us from the Planning Commission?
Sure. Thanks, Madam Mayor. So at the last Planning Commission meeting on April 17th, we had a hearing with Wild Horse Development regarding the mixed-use development between Claim and Bill Wolf's property. That was heard at the Planning Commission meeting. That was continued to the next meeting this May 15th. That may get continued based on some work that we're doing with them. Elkhorn Springs was scheduled for the last Planning Commission meeting, but we're in discussions with them, and that may also get continued to a special meeting or a June meeting. And other than that, we don't have anything specifically scheduled for the May 15th meeting. Potentially Ty Frisbee and the concept plan for his couple of acres that are adjacent to the Ross Creek town center area are going to be considered. That may not be May 15th. It looks like that's probably going to be in June. So those are the three items that are pending.
All right, thank you, Thomas. Any council members have any questions about Planning Commission? All right, then we'll move on to Design Review Committee. Thomas, do you have anything for us in that?
We've had no new applications or reviews, so nothing to report.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to Economic Development Committee. Ralph, what do you have for us for an update on that committee?
Yeah, that's primarily revolved around Steve and Javier, who came in and interested in building out their proposal for Ross Creek. We certainly have Wild Horse still in, as Thomas mentioned. We have potentially the areas in Elkhorn, although I think Nate wants to potentially move those over to Ross Creek, and those are the three big areas. We also have land acquisition. So working with Ben McAdams, who was a former congressman, and his partner, they would like to come in the next meeting and share their input on the world of land acquisition at the federal level and where our opportunities exist to acquire land that we will own as a town.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Anybody on the council have any questions for Economic Development Committee? All right, moving on to Parks, Open Space and Trails Committee, that's me. So the committee met on April 15th. We continued to discuss the question of fencing, fencing along the border between the state park and Hideout on the developed side. Fencing options, also costs. So Amanda White, the park manager, did ask about a plan. The Bureau of Reclamation had been telling her prior to now that they were uninterested in opening up any access points other than the state park entrance, where the new gate is. That's the only way you can get in. Now there is possibly the option to have future entrance points from Hideout subdivisions, which is something we coincidentally and ironically had just given up on. And now suddenly it's back, that they may allow entrances from some of our subdivisions, from our public trails that it would exist there. So the committee also agreed that we are establishing a bike route on the roads in Hideout. And we had Daniel and Gordon join us for that discussion. And so the route will be both sides of Ascent Drive, all the way on Shoreline Drive, Longview Drive, all the way to the Two Hay border with Hideout. And we're going to be installing standard bike route signs and a smaller Hideout logo that we're hoping Alicia will help us design. Meantime, the signs are coming out of the existing budget for the fiscal year. And so at this point, we're expecting Daniel to order those, and then the Public Works team will install them. There's already budget for this year, as I said, and if additional funds are needed, if the signs cost more than a little bit, then we have money in the 26 budget that we already presented today. That was it. We also, in our committee, Carol joins us, and Carol has a transportation update. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, and
Chris,
right
can I
now,
ask a question first before we move on to the next item?
Yes.
So there is a fence along the emergency egress, a barbed wire fence. It's in horrible shape. It's been mostly obliterated by the various truck traffic that's been going up and down the emergency egress. I'm kind of wondering, when you refer to a fence, are you referring to a fence, that fence that the park
Yes.
would rebuild, or that we would rebuild?
We already have funding to put the fence up. We have gotten grant money, and we're able to at least do some portion of that fence, and that is the portion of the fence that we are looking at.
And what kind of fence would it be?
We have options now that are coming for us. We have to figure out what the choices are. And then the fence is the state parks fence. So we're working with them to choose a mutually agreeable design.
Okay. Might I suggest that since it was the developers that obliterated it, maybe they should contribute to rebuilding it?
Yes, that's a great suggestion. In fact, we're already approaching them on that, and we're expecting them to help out. In addition to the grant money that we have. So we don't know yet how much it's going to cost, because you have to pick the fence first, so you can figure out how much it costs. And then so we're still working on that with the state park.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, Carol.
okay, transportation, the focus from High Valley Transit and Park City is 224, not 248. But you know, like, I'll update when I hear.
All right. Thank you, Carol. We really appreciate you keeping an ear to the ground on all matters of transportation. I think they're going to become even more critical when the next ski season comes around, and we've got 2 resorts, Deer Valley and the Canyons parking lot.
Well,
Deer
Valley East.
Deer Valley East, well,
That's-
exactly, Deer
right.
Valley East coming online, while Snow Park, is that the right thing,
Right.
is gonna be under torn up, and then Canyons is all torn up for their parking garage, so it's going to become more and
I
more
just-
critical
I
as we get
keep-
closer to ski season.
Following that.
Yep, thank you. Okay, with that, we've reached the end of our agenda, and I'm very grateful right now. Thank you, Alicia, for not putting an executive session on here tonight. So, as I mentioned, we do have an executive session that will be happening on Monday at 5. So with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight.
So moved.
Okay, thank you,
Second.
Jonathan. Okay, seconded by Ralph. Carol?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Chris? Yes. Ralph?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night.